what you want, you have to be determined. You have to be ready, ever ready to face everything possible. You can never win if you are at the mercy of what is fighting you. You can listen to me on that again. You can never win a fight if you are at the mercy of what is fighting you. Losing comes first by you admitting that you are failing. According to one of my mentors, Tim Akano, he said, and I quote, that the world does not listen to people on their knee. That is, the world doesn't listen to people who are at its mercy. That is the global principles of ruling. If you feel, oh, I'm sorry, I'm little, have mercy on me, the world will continue to grind you and roll over you. And one of the principles of this world you all need to understand, one of the principles of this world ruling that you all need to understand, all people, continents, country, one must be submissive to another. That is the principle of the world ruling. Whether you like it or not, as an individual or a country or a continent, there must be that person that wants to be superior to others. And that is one of the principles that inspired the slave trade mission. The Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885, where Africa was put on the table and shared like a meat among the European colonizers. This same principle is applied in our current system of world ruling today. Have you ever wondered why Africa's situation and its exploitation is a generational thing? Have you ever wondered? The world's power, those who colonized us years ago are no more alive. But why is it that same principle is still in operation today? Every nation who has once suffered in the hands of another wants to pay back and revenge on the less developed nations. Why every nation and continent is rising above all global ruling and suppression, Africa has refused to wake up due to the confusion that exists among the leaders of our motherland. This is evident in most summits that happens in Europe, where small nations, can host the whole continent. You hear of things like France, Africa Summit. You hear of things like Germany, Africa Summit. I mean, Africa is a continent with member states of 54 countries. And one nation can come and put a summit and put it as Africa and one single country. And we respond to it, funny enough. Don't you always wonder about situations like that? The world is on a constant move. It never stops moving. When it passes, it either meets you standing strong and changes its direction of movement, press you and drain you of your energy, everything you think to own. Be reminded of my earlier points that this planet Earth, one must surely have to be a victim of another. While that is being said, there is every guarantee for the ruled to rule the ruler. Don't be confused by that statement. Read it again or listen to me again. While that is being said that one country or one nation must be submissive to another, there is every guarantee for the ruled Africa that everybody wants to rule. There is every guarantee that Africa too can in turn rule the ruler. The weak can become the strongest. The suppressor can become the oppressor. The vulnerable can become resilient. All these are subject to our own zeal and will as a people. In my introduction, I promised to deliver this keynote address based on the theme of the conference. You know when word becomes sweet? Do you know when ruling becomes so powerful and becomes so important that you cannot leave it, that it becomes a generational thing, is when you are in the position to rule another. That is the situation where we find ourselves. We can rise. I highlighted key factor here that I consider as a divisive means used against us, which are supposed to be our own united means. Factors that can unite us are used as a divisive means among us. And if you want to have a clear understanding of these factors that keeps us separated as a people, carefully study areas where Europeans, till this very moment as I'm speaking on this important conference, study areas where they have most interest in Africa. One is language. One of the divisive means that are using against us as the people, one is language. The bedrock and foundation of every human activity is built on language. You need language to interact and communicate your ideas, build relationship, execute your plans. Language offers security, creates strong bond, fair level of trust. For example, if this is a physical conference and all of us are meeting for the first time from different countries, and I happen to be among you people, or you happen to be among us, who would you first trust? The first person that speaks the same language with you. Because you can understand each other. It creates a bond. That is what a language means. Africa as a continent needs a unified indigenous language that is common to everybody. Unified language supports growth. It contributes substantially to development of any nation. In our own case, as a continent, foreign languages are edging out our dialects. Go to institutions, they teach French, they teach German. If you want to study in Germany today, you must have to first of all understand their language. So also, so many other countries of the world. What happened to us, Africa, as the people? And this is not about me coming on the platform to complain. I'm only trying to reawakening our spirit. We need a unified language. The move by the African Union to institute a common language called Swahili is a very smart move. It's a very smart move. But it doesn't stop there. That is just a proclamation. We as the people need to put it into practice. Mr. Ahmed, in your university, every lecturer, every person here, you need to ensure people in your different places adopt this language, communicate it. Because no matter how they promise, no matter how declarations are made, if it is not put into practice, it's not going to yield any result at the end of the day. Start teaching your people so that even the free trade agreement we made, how are we going to do business together if you cannot speak one common language? If you speak one language, I'm speaking another, how do we move forward as the people? One second point that they are using as a divisive means against us, which is supposed to be our strength, is currency. Currency is a symbol, a unique identity of every nation. It is a measure of each country's strength in terms of economy. Oftentimes, African countries are weighed against each other based on the value of their currency. Such global methods of measuring country strength, among other factors, bring about contempt, downgrading, and competition among us. Africa needs one single currency, backed up power resources. Every European nation, I can say this anywhere, under this voice, even when this video is going to be listened to by any other person around the world, every European nation survived through Africa resources. Cut off Africa and every nation around the world will suffer. And the greatest threat to that factor is the unity of Africa. That is why they do everything possible to ensure we stay divided and not unite as one people. Africa recently, J.J. Rawlings, of a blessed memory of Ghana, was on this factor till he died. The issue of the eco currency instituted by African Union. Eco currency, I know so many of you people are aware, where it's going to be a one currency used by all African nations, backed up by our resources. There will be no currency in the world that will be compared or that can stand the value of such currency. One country, single-handedly by one president, France, hijacked that eco project. Till today, after the money and the sample is printed, nobody is hearing about it anymore. That eco currency was taken away. And I think it's now being used by France. You can go online and check some of these factors I'm talking about. We need one common currency. The third thing that are being used as divisive means against us as the people is economy. But this is a very serious problem that most leaders don't understand. I don't know if they do. I don't want to conclude. But it's one serious factor that so many of them are not taking into account. You can never be a strong nation if your economy is weak. And you can never be a strong nation if only 5-6% of your population have access to wealth and the remaining aspects are poor. We need to focus on building decentralized solutions. We need to focus on building wealth, distributed wealth that everybody have access to. Nation cannot be considered wealthy if wealth is shared among few. At least 65 to 70% population should have access to wealth. Avoid the mentality of me, myself. You have to create and bring about solutions that empower many people. That is when a nation can be strong. And all of us under this voice, including myself, nothing is stopping us from creating solutions that empower our people. That is one of the things we are trying to do in my own NGO that I champion. We are creating a distributed wealth where we can farm among ourselves in any part of Africa. Anybody can farm anywhere in Africa. You necessarily don't need land to be able to farm. That is one of the solutions we are trying to bring on board. We have the workforce, our population, young youthful population. I mean, one of the best youthful population in the world. Africa has one of the exciting average young population in the world. Very, very, very educative, creative set of people. We have resources, manufacturing. What can you not find in Africa? Which mineral deposit can you go around African nation that you cannot be found? Every nation in Africa has one or two things that is unique to them as resources that they can depend on to build their economies. So let's leave the competition. Let's leave about Nigeria is wealthy, is resourceful. That resources has to reach out to other African nations. We have to start building industries. Industries that facilitate empowerment, that facilitates creation of wealth for people. The issue of taking crude oil from Nigeria, from South Africa, refined abroad, bring them back, we are losing money. Selling our own products, bringing it back with our own money. This is not funny. I want to also talk on another thing briefly. I know my time is counting. Media. Media is another factor that we are losing our values daily to. Let me tell you, the only way you can communicate yourself to the rest of the world is through media. I'm here today. Things I do locally before, I'm trying to extend it to cover the whole continent because we are in 50 countries as I speak with you. It's through media that people get to know me. And if bad record is written about me, you people might not want to associate with me. And if bad record is spread about me, most people in other countries that don't even know me already knows me to be a bad person. That is how powerful it is. Most of these European nations, most of these countries live on propagandas and hype that media offer. They are so fragile. So many of them are so fragile. They are packaged by media and pushed to you. Oh, this is the best country in the world. This is the best country with the best, with the strongest currency. This is the best country with the most educated people. It's through media. In fact, I was telling somebody that day that if you have to believe that there are ghettos in United States, you won't believe it. Check it. There are ghettos. It's not heaven. So, but Africa, go online. If you search about Africa, the first thing you need to see is deserts. Things you need to see are animals. These are not good pictures. Brain processes information based on what the eye can visualize. So they detect for you what you need to hear, what you need to watch, what you need to listen to, both on social media, printing press, broadcasting corporations. Which language now can you not find BBC? Why their goal is to bring news to every person's doorstep. They have what they're costing is much more than the value people are getting. Because they tell you what you need to hear. We need to refuse the bad image painted about us as a continent. We need to bring out information about ourselves. In fact, one of my friends in England told me when one of the videos I sent to him that he was shot here in Nigeria, he said he never believed, that he thought when they said Africa, everywhere is just bullshit. In this modern era. So we have to encourage ourselves. Those who are in the movie industry, those who are in the music industry, shoot movies in good places. Show it to the world. We have skyscrapers too in Africa. We are developing. This is where the origin of humanity came from. And if not because of the oppression, why are we in this situation we are today? So I want to encourage us, when you are using your social media, mind what you post. When you are shooting your movies, mind the places you project out. Because so many people don't understand the value of the power of media. They don't. I also want to talk about culture and religion. This is very serious. I may not want to say much on this, but this, everybody knows, is a serious problem. Let me tell you, every resources, everything you find under this planet Earth is inspired by culture, because it's the way of life. The phone you are using is because of a need for somebody to communicate. It's part of culture. When you travel air, it's because someone needs to reach out to his fellow somewhere else for physical interaction. But today, that same culture and religion has been used as the divisive means. Africa has no reason or whatsoever in any figure, any factor, any aspect to be poor. Africa has the highest and the richest culture ever anywhere on this planet Earth that can attract people for tourism, that can attract people to come visiting to know what is happening. Let me tell you, one thing is trending now, African music, everywhere in the world now. If we have sensitive leaders, this is where we communicate our cultures. This is where we communicate our values. But nobody understands this. Now that everybody is clamoring for Africa food, this is the best way to move. But without good leadership system, we can't go forward. We can't. So they need to understand too that these are the things that the Western world are doing, that we at the end of the day suffer it. Look at cartoons. Cartoons are used as a means of projecting Western culture play. In our own African culture, if you check it very well, it's never in our culture to have same-sex marriage. What is rampant today? They see it as nothing. The media tells you it's your will. Do it. It's not part of our culture. Culture is the way of life, the style or pattern of behavior of certain people. It's compound value, shared value, historical events, and view about the world. It is often defined with some adopted principles that guide such set of people. In every way, Africa has limitless opportunity to control the rest of the world. And like I said, one of those such means is our culture. But unfortunately, it has been used as a factor to cause division among us. The rapid adoption of foreign cultures through what we hear through media has wreaked so many havoc among us. You, as you're listening to me, I speaking to you, we need to project our culture. We need to appreciate what we have. We need to adopt it. Wherever you go, wear clothes that designate your culture. These are values we need to start creating. I don't want to waste too much of your time because I know I was given 15 minutes. I have to round up a bit. So we have education. Education today, what are you teaching? I have to ask specifically Dr. Ahmed, what are you teaching in your institution? What are you teaching the next generation? I know when knowledge was scarce, little things were examined, like from the factor of what they call atom in chemistry, one of the smallest unit of things. People started researching about things, about universe, about how things work, and they are documented. Until today, we still read those things. Yes, it's good to have a knowledge of how knowledge came into being. But we also must have to teach realistic things that are happening now to our own generation. Teach about Africa's situation. Teach them about how manufacturing. Teach them about how to build economy. Teach them about good leadership. Teach them about things that concern us. Not one research that was done 100 million years ago. That one person will study, and at the end of the day, when he comes into the society, he's lost, he's confused, he's misguided and misdirected by things he come to see. Dr. Ahmed, I know I've taken much of your time, but I want to briefly stop here on this number 6. Teach what is wise of what people need to know. All right? So one thing I want to leave you with, all leaders are not born leaders. They choose to be leaders, fighting for what they believe, and are ready to die for the cause that benefits the larger population. If you want to be that one leader, then you have to be ever ready and take holistic measure without fear of anything to take on the fight. It's a fight. It's not like olden days when it was a colonial era that you see physical assault that people can fight for. This is a mental fight. This is intellectual fight. And you need to take it and fight it with all your might. I believe Africa, everybody, the knowledge is growing wide. And we will all one day sit at the helm of the global affairs to also control this planet Earth and revenge too. Because every nation that has been once colonized are coming on a revenge. And I think it's only Africa that is left. And all of them are coming in. All of them are coming in. On who to dominate. Our resources are shared. China, France, Germany, Belgium, all of them are coming for you. And if you cannot fight to protect your own children's future, they will turn them back and share it again. And they become slaves once more time. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you for the leadership of this initiative. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity to communicate with you. I'm happy, and I can see the progress we are making as the people. Thank you very much, and have a fruitful discussion going forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much, brother. I'm really happy that I have here with you. And thank you for walking us through the Western end of Africa.
Thank you very much.
Please tell your fellow Nigerians that I'm your fan because of your custom. You are capable of maintaining your custom, including your leaders. I know Olusegun Obasanjo, Goodluck Jonathan, and Muhammadu Buhari.
Yeah. You're right.
They keep their customs, unlike other African leaders who appear in suits and ties. So please tell them that you are able to collect the things that have fallen apart, which your great writer Chino Achebe was worried about some 60 years ago. Okay, I thank you very much, brother. So now
thank you so much.
Let me jump to the southern part of Africa and cordially invite Professor Mamo Muche, a Pan-Africanist, a Pan-Ethiopianist. Professor, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I was, can I put my Is my PowerPoint there?
Yeah, yes, you can.
Huh?
Yes, you can.
You can share it.
Okay, okay.
Share
Let me just
screen,
see if I can. Okay, okay. Share screen. Okay. All right. Is it this one? It's not this one. Ah. Okay. Did it come?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it came. Okay. Good.
Make it full screen.
Full screen. All right. How do I do it now? Full screen.
F5 press
F5.
F5.
Press
Huh?
F5. F5.
Huh? Huh?
F5. F5.
Press it.
Press
Is it okay?
F5. Press F5 so that it can be full screen.
Okay.
Otherwise, no problem. You can go as it is.
Okay, okay, okay. Slideshow. Okay.
Yeah, slideshow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it says what? Show. Start recording from you. Start. No, no, no. Set up slideshow. Why is it?
Next.
Present. Okay. All right. I don't know why it's a bit complicated now. Yeah. All right. I try to give you something. Apply Ubuntu to accelerate African unity with education.
No problem, Prof. Continue as it is.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about this. Yeah. So I would like to just give you some ideas about how we can change the education system by applying Ubuntu and the indigenous knowledge values that have emerged from Africa. So let me say Ubuntu is built on the philosophy there is an I in you and there is a you in I. We cannot be fully human alone. We are made for interdependence. We are made for family. I am because we are. Time now with Ubuntu to undertake rethinking, thinking, reframing, framing, relearning, learning, redoing, doing, retransforming, transformation, reperforming, performative, and reformation. So we need a new approach in Africa because we have not fully decolonized. So because of that, we need to do this. When you have Ubuntu, you embrace others. You are generous. You are compassionate. If the world had more Ubuntu, would not have war, would not have this huge gap between the rich and the poor. You are rich so that you can make up what is lacking for others. You are powerful so that you can help the weak, just as a mother or father helps their children. This is a brother in America. His name is Hunter. Alvin Adams is very interesting. We have been together for a long time. He's an African American, so sometimes I invite him to come to South Africa too. I wish you could invite him also to come and give some lectures. He's very, very good. So there is also maths, embodied foundational values of love, life, creativity, and awareness that work to inhibit or isolate ISFET, life's entropic tendencies, by an inner matrix of virtue, order, balance, harmony, compassion, reciprocity, justice, and truth. Math cannot easily translate into European languages. That's what he said. Now, African universal values of maths, Ubuntu, and others make Africans associational, not individual. Ethiopianism, Pan-Africanism, and the African Renaissance have powerful values, principles, and ideas to bring faster the unity of Africa. But everyone in Africa, from elementary to tertiary, must learn and make mindset shift, a paradigm shift from division to the unity of all Africans, living as one human family. All African humans must be living with Africa as one community, Something like that is what we need to do. Our problem is we know how to declare, how to write declarations and protocols, and about unity, and we have been talking about unity, but we've never united. Even when the first Pan-African organization was formed in 1963, May 25, 1963, about nearly now a month ago, is the date Africa Day. One of the things Kwame Nkrumah, Emperor Haile Selassie, and others agreed was to create a Pan-African university. But never, that university was not created. Even now, when they created it, it was created in a very strange way. And it's also created in such a way that the funding is not done by us Africans. So we have a problem. We're the richest continent in this planet. What don't we have? But we end up being in a situation where over 89 billion every year goes out of with the illicit financial flows. And then something 60 billion is given to us as aid, loan, and debt. We suffer from that because we don't know how to apply our own values of Ubuntu, all the great values that are lifesaver, not just for Africa, but the whole world, the whole universe. So Julius Caesar exclaimed, "Ex Africa semper aliquid novi." Out of Africa comes always something new. Trust me, the knowledge heritage, the spiritual heritage, the struggle in every sphere, there's so much knowledge that was created in Africa, but we don't value it, we don't know it, we don't include it in the education system, and it's a very complicated thing. Now, the current new from Africa to be practice Ubuntu to make Africa become free from poverty, unemployment, inequalities, conflicts, wars, and religious, ethnic, gender, and all other divisions to bring social justice, social solidarity for all. So, we apply Ubuntu to deal with the 4 challenges confronting Africa. The problem of unending poverty, inequality, and unemployment has not been replaced with additive and multiplicative well-being for all the people. The world is going through demographic explosion and climate change, with informal and agricultural economy remaining still largely where the majority of the population live. The 4th challenge is now the global COVID-19 pandemic that has created problems that still remain unresolved. We are now also entering into what is being described as the surveillance capitalism, which is connected to the digital age of the 4th industrial revolution. Now, you see, we have also this very amazing, the media world now is scary. Now, what we hear, you will not believe, you are, at least in Ethiopia, I don't know what you hear every day from their media, but what we hear now is incredible. Now, the entire media, I mean, the Guardian, New York Times, all the social media, all now talk about about Ethiopia. A lot of Amharas being killed in Wallagga, things like that, and that scares us. People like me, I suffer a lot. I sincerely tell you, when I hear innocent people who have nothing to do with politics, just because of their ethnicity is being killed. Why don't we have Ubuntu? Why don't we have values? Why don't we see each other, all of us, not just we speak different languages, we have different religions. Why do we value the difference rather than our unity and our solidarity and our brotherhood and sisterhood? That's what the key thing we have. Ubuntu also is needed to change universities in Africa. A university has to be politically distant from the state. If the university is connected to the state, it's a problem, trust me. Secondly, a university has also to be culturally close to society. Absolutely even now, with the knowledge the universities have, they could be really educating people not to be in this difficult situation. We need to have real links with the communities. And thirdly, a university has to be intellectually linked to wider scholarly and scientific values of the world of learning. And this is what Ali Mazuri, he has passed away, I know him, but he's written a lot on Africa. The truly African university must be one that draws its inspiration from its environment, not a transplanted tree, but growing from a seed that's planted and nurtured in the African soil. There's a lot of indigenous knowledge that we lack. For example, in the country where we are all there, Ethiopia, what was the knowledge that was not created? Huge amount of knowledge was created. And this knowledge from pharmaceutical industry, medicine, astronomy, mathematics, in every sphere, there's a lot of knowledge. And that knowledge has been taken by outsiders, or about 21 universities teach girls and give even PhDs and the Giz language. But in Ethiopia, we have our an amazing alphabet. The alphabet is an African alphabet by Sylvester Williams, who opened the first university in Addis Ababa, the first history department. He was the first leader at that time, director. He said, and he was sent by Europeans initially from Sweden to preach religion in Ethiopia. And he said, he apologized. He said, how can I do that? Why, when the Christianity was also almost started from a country like Ethiopia. And he apologized seriously. And then he said, no, I'm not going to be a preacher. He became a teacher. And then he learned our language. He learned, and you know what he said? Sincerely speaking, he said, from the Roman and Latin alphabet, the Ethiopian alphabet, the Giz alphabet is superior. He said that. It's not me who said it. It's him. I met him in 2007 in Oslo. We had the Ethiopian second millennium, and I was giving a keynote, and he was also giving a keynote. You will not believe. He got about 11 minutes of standing ovation for what he said. And the calendar, he said also, the Ethiopian calendar, he said, it's better than the Julian and Gregorian calendar. He said things like that. I think I'm just simply saying to you that the things we need to value, we don't value. We copy, we mimic, all right? Our SIM card, our software, our hard disk is full of virus. This is colonized virus. And then we change even alphabets like Kobe. Why do they do that? What's all these things? Why did these people did it? It's not right. This is also these mission churches, all these things that come from outside. Why? I mean, why they start attacking now the Orthodox Church and the Orthodox Christians? This is not fair. We should not attack Muslims. We should not attack. All right, Judaic, we should not attack because of religion. It's very horrible. That's what's happening now. It's sad. And you hear it all in the media. Epistemic freedom, intellectual sovereignty in production and reproduction of knowledge, right to think, write, theorize, communicate, and interpret the world from where we are located. This set afoot new humanism and the ecologies of knowledge. We need something like that, something sincerely believing in ourselves. We should value. Then I'm not saying we should exclude the rest of the world, but first we value, and that's, trust me, whatever you say about the Chinese, they are very good at it, also at really valuing their own indigenous knowledge, their own traditional medicine, many things like that. In fact, one of the ladies, her name is Tu Yu. She just received a few years ago a Nobel Prize. She never went to university, but she did. Was trying, from her traditional medicine, she was able to cure many diseases. And because of that, she managed to get the thing. And she was saying, this is a great, it's not for her, it is for traditional medicine, a great celebration for her, for the Chinese traditional medicine, she said. So I think there's a lot, even in Ethiopia, the traditional knowledge that our people know, but we don't go to our universities don't go there, find out, try to innovate it, get it to know, the rest of the world to know about it, and eventually even get them prizes and things like that. We miss like that. So Ubuntu to change the African education system, to create an African unity for Renaissance project identity, to promote smart growth based on unified knowledge, learning, and innovation. Inclusive growth that combines the knowledge of the community with the knowledge from the academy. Sustainable growth that utilizes natural resources by combining the human, natural, spiritual worlds with moral intelligence. African Union Education Commission must be established to create the African free education system with Ubuntu, including indigenous knowledge. Now, changing the African education curriculum with Ubuntu. Ubuntu from kindergarten to research university must be included. Ubuntu continuously from primary, secondary, higher education and beyond in people's work lives. Expanding education into community, society. Expanding education into business and industry. Every African to become all-time learner and creator with the knowledge, learning, innovation, competence system throughout one's life. That's very, very important. Education curriculum modules with Ubuntu. Develop or identify common core education curricula for kindergarten, elementary school, high school, colleges, and universities. Harmonize and monitor the implementation of common core curriculum across member state educational institutes in all schools to tertiary level, university. Develop and monitor the implementation of Mama Africa curriculum. in all member states, in all schools. So how our ancestors lived peacefully before colonialism, some modules we can create. We could call it Mama Africa 101. How Africans dealt with colonialism and survived, Mama Africa 102. The birth of Pan-Africans, how Africans live in the post-colonial period now, all right? And the African Unity Delay Resolution with Ubuntu Future, that's also what we should do. And then create accreditation standards, standardized qualification and accreditation of African Higher Education Institute. Do not outsource it. Develop an all-African-wide African-focused curriculum on African history, economy, indigenous knowledge, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and culture. Create awareness on principles of African Union and create self-confident, responsible, accountable generation for Africa to stop talking unity, promoting conflict, division, and corruption. All right? Now, adding Ubuntu values in the ongoing process. Enlighten African young generation with the latest development in scientific research in different areas under the political, cultural, socio-economic, and ecological changes that's going on in Africa now. So educate African children of the new challenges faced by Africa, including questions of African unity, Pan-Africanism, regional integration, education and culture, youth, gender issues, health, cultural diversity, creativity, arts, culture and development, intercultural dialogue within Africa, peace and environment, climate change, urbanization, scientific research and innovation, healthcare, sustainable development, good governance, South-South cooperation, relationship with African diaspora, and indigenous knowledge, and science, technology, engineering, mathematics, education. All this, you need Ubuntu anchored development culture. That's what we should do in all spheres. So, New African Education Commission, let us all petition to get the Africa Union Education Commission or the Pan-African Union Education Commission to be approved by the Africa Union, making the Pan-African Education Commission to work in line with the African Union social policy framework and in partnership with African nations, education ministers, and academic institutes across Africa to strengthen and develop continent-wide core curriculum and accreditation parameters of all the African youth with Ubuntu. By working with experts throughout Africa, the Pan-African Education Commission pulls Africa's subject matter expertise in education to develop Mama African curriculum and set of parameters to accredit African professionals by African Union for good without external interference. We suggested the African with my friends, Dr. Abebe and others who used to work and who has also studied in Cuba. And what we did was we suggested about 7 years ago, in 2015, to the African Union, we sent a concept note how to set up the African Education Committee, but we have never had any response from them. That's amazing. I think that's, see, this is the new curriculum structure with Ubuntu. You can look at it when I send you the PowerPoint, you can look at it. We can create a new curriculum structure, and that would certainly help and totally change the mindset and the paradigm shift it brings for the younger generation. Once the youth is changed, while those children are changed, Africa will change. If they know how to unite, then Africa will never disunite. So I think that's the critical point now, not to work on the older people now. These older people, if they are nice like me now, we should be talking to the youth, and the youth must be the ones that must be change makers and game changers. That's what we need to do. Now, a new hybrid synthesis of Ubuntu, even African development has to be anchored with Ubuntu values. Then there is a need now to build new synergy between development and innovation system. Economic gain to make profit is not sufficient. There must be social well-being gain, environmental protection gains, synergize informal with the formal economy, indigenous with modern, all knowledge, not merely prioritize the economic variable, by excluding the social environmental gains to undertake both innovation and development. So the development and innovation theories have evolved mainly dominated by economic field. There's a need to generate problem-based knowledge creation by applying all the disciplines using the unity of knowledge. We need a unified conceptual framing, theories linking innovation system with tangible, measurable development, comprehensive health, human nature, safety outcomes. The ontology, epistemology, and axiology of innovation with development need transformation by rethinking them to address the challenges the world is going through. We have now digital gangsters and cybercrime and social media awash with unregulated explosion of all kinds of morally and emotionally not intelligent information. There is a need for transformative innovation that can contribute to a well-being anchored development of both humans and nature, very critical. We have now moved from industrialization to digitalization time. Now in this digital time, and robotics time, Internet of Things time, all right, 3D printing, all these things we do, everything is going to change. Artificial intelligence, there's a lot of change that's going to happen. Cars will now be driven electronically. Aeroplanes may be driven not electronically, not many things can change now. The entire world may be changing. If this is changing, we need to know how to do it also, to not be again dominated by it and get into crisis and to injustices from the cybercrime world. We need to also understand and deal with it. That's the one thing we need to do. Ubuntu for Africa to manage digital time. Let Africa move from the physical world to the digital world and enter into the knowledge economy with a smart, integrated and green innovative Africa. Let Africans also try to develop sovereign wealth fund to make the people own the rich African wealth that all countries continue, all that still continues to be exploited by those who are not Africans, except those who collaborate with the external exploiters of Africa. The politicians in Africa are dangerous. I've never seen any honest a few of them, when they become nice, they kill them, like Thomas Sankara, yeah, Lumumba, this kind of people, they get killed. If they are nice, if they are, you know, they are manipulating and, you know, they relate with all of them, then what do? They never help Africa. They never help the people. They don't know how to empower the people. They don't know how to serve the people. They only know how to serve their own pockets and their own ego. This is not good. No need to depend on loans, aid, and debt for Africa. Better to undertake all transformation and production by engaging all the people, like the Ethiopian did in building the Ethiopian Grand Renaissance Dam. It is the people of Ethiopia that are raising the resources to build the dam in the Nile River. That's amazing. Even though they are poor people, they are doing the best. I really respect our people for actually doing that. So we have been working on how to apply this transformative innovative development to the African context. The book we produced on putting Africa first, the making of African innovation systems, highlighted the critique of the current development promoted by both national and international organizations. No imitation of national innovation for Africa. No imitation of development economics for Africa. Africa needs a contextually anchored new model to anticipate innovations with an African integrated sustainable development innovation system. There's a need to undertake a rethinking and reinvention of innovation and development from the current pattern to the transformative new synthesis by taking the challenge Africa faces to discover how the problems will be resolved by creating innovative, developed, well-being anchored Africa to serve above all the people and nature together. So reimagine Africa with Ubuntu, embedding a total innovation learning culture, transforming Africa through knowledge, learning, innovation, competence building, establishing a Pan-African innovation system by learning and building from the past innovations and indigenous knowledge, using the rich values of Africa, Ubuntu, MAT, to use Africa-centered indigenous knowledge innovation without transgressing social and ecological health. So learn to find unity pathways by teaching each other with Ubuntu how to share. And it is true with Africa unity, we can make each other how to care by prioritizing Africa and all African people above all, more than one another, oneself or one another. We need to change ourselves. Let us do the unity by appreciating difference, learn to find the unity pathways by teaching each other with Ubuntu how to share. And it is true with Africa unity, we can make each other how to care by prioritizing Africa and all African people above all, more than oneself or another. So all Africans put our beloved Africa first. To acknowledge to put Africa first is to put humanity first. The world is still divided by implicit or explicit classifications of inferiority and superiority. Africans have yet removed coloniality. They still prefer to look and affirm each other by mimicking externality. Africans must treat one another as one human family, practice Ubuntu truly, as you are me and me is you really, as no African is a stranger to another African. So not call some Africans as relatives and others as aliens. Africaphilia must replace all the divisive forms that turn the African one family as the strangers. Let us learn how to care and share with full collaboration and trust, knowing how to agree even when we disagree without any conflict and fight. Apply the relativity of African unity by removing ever the gravity burden of disunity and conflict. Unity is essential, never again for Africa to fall behind. Africa uniting is colonial divide and rule ending, and truly humanity as a whole and everywhere benefiting. With Ubuntu, all Africans coming together, showing the necessary to recognize full equality, to build with the cherished philosophy of Ubuntu, one in all and all in one, all Africans as one family and humanity. Let's all choose with Ubuntu the pathways to create, invent, innovate, and value the health, wealth for the people above all. Anasaginado, thank you. Asante sana. Thanks. Sorry, I took time.
Okay, thank you, Professor. It is really an honor to have you here. I thank God for you joining us. You really enlightened us the very African indigenous concepts of Ubuntu and math. I really thank you very much. I was not expecting you because you are not in the list of presenters. Thank you very much again. We have been in Nigeria. Now we are with Professor Mamo in South Africa. Now we are going to stay at South Africa, Mozambique. Mr. Pedro Carlos Chipos. Now the time is for you. Please share us your screen and go ahead your presentation.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Mr. Pedro?
Yes, I'm the one. Good morning.
Good morning, brother. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organization of this first conference, international conference on Pan-Africanism, especially in a special way, the Deborah Taba University of Ethiopia, Riyadh University of Kenya, Mewaya International University of Nigeria, and obviously the University of Zambezi, where I belong. And I would like to thank in a special way my director of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, Dr. Iqbal Alias, who encouraged me to take part in this conference. My topic is about participatory democracy to sustainable governance in Mozambique. This is my topic: participatory democracy to sustainable development in Mozambique. Anyway, I would like to start saying that today, the state cannot by itself cover all the social problems or risks resulting from its own weakness and the inability of the market. We are living in a globalized world.
Can you make your PowerPoint full screen, Dr. Pedro? Make it full screen so that we can see properly.
How can I do so that?
No problem. Go ahead. Now it's better.
Okay.
You
Now it's better.
Yeah, it's better now.
Yes, I've been saying that nowadays, today, the state cannot by itself cover all social problems due to the way the world is being governed, the globalized world, whereby the welfare state is no longer the structure or the platform that used by the governors. We are moving, therefore, from a welfare state to well-mixed state or welfare-mixed state, where there are no longer social protection policies focused on community, but social protection policies suggested by the community themselves, as used to say Rodriguez. So we mean that local population define priorities for solving their problems. That is, they're actors in their own development. So here, it's like saying that I partake, therefore I am in the Ubuntu philosophy. I am existing in so far as I participate. As the previous colleague of mine said, one in all and all in one. So I want to start from representative and participatory democracy to sustainable governance. I would like to say that according to a certain politician, Norberto Bobbio, said representative democracy generally means the collective deliberation that is deliberations that concern the entire collectivity are taken not directly by those who are part of it, but by people elected for this purpose. But today, nowadays in the world, more and more people are happy with this political system that we call representative democracy, or feel indifferent from it. One of the reasons for this unhappiness is the difficulty of national government to respond to the consent of people. Several times, if not often, these representatives are preoccupied with their own interests or in the interest of their political parties and not the interest of people whom they pretend to represent. So within this society grows the idea of participating in the management of state affairs without repressing it. Instead of opposing, the civil society organization and the other people of goodwill, we put here religious people, academics, intellectuals, traditional leaders, becomes a stronger partner in the solution of various social, economic, and political problems. Within this, it's necessary to find a new way of democracy that is comprehensive and inclusive. It is participatory democracy, as said Boaventura de Souza Santos, or deliberative and concerned democracy, as said Diogo Freitas do Amaral, or we call it decentralized democracy according to our own point of view. Democratic theory allows the participation of people in all fields of society. It begins by admitting the difference in thinking about social, economic, and political reality. It is within this turning fork that the Mozambican philosopher called Severino Nguenya notes that we must have the courage to question ourselves in the depth about what hinders our progress so that we can envision a better democracy. In turn, Alan Turing, a politician, recalled that democracy is the recognition that individuals and communities have the right to be the actors in their own history. This is how civil society is called to political participation with a view to sustainable government. It's therefore a must to reinvent democracy. In the other ways, the sociologist Antonio Ferran said, we have to democratize democracy, or we have to opt for participatory democracy in our view, because the current or classical representative democracy, although it's the most widespread form in the world, often does not represent the will of the people or citizens, but rather they represent the will of members of political parties of a private interest of some people, in a special way of some governors. In order to such a participatory, deliberative, consent democracy to take place or to exist, or to be filled in the proper way, it's necessary a political participation. That is, the discussion of political, economic, social issues by all people. It's through political participation that those who are felt on the sidelines, we mean those who are not in the center of the republic or in the decisive powers, such as the government, are included within the democratic process, contributing to the definition of a community development policies in which they are inserted. It is within this democratic participation or participatory democracy that sustainable government is possible. Anyway, what are the conditions for sustainable government in Mozambique, which must be also condition for some African countries? For a long time, it was believed that the right to vote was the people's only means of expression through which they could decide on the life of the country. However, there are some governments that even with this privilege assured, continue to govern their people with an iron fist. Gradually, society become aware of the arrogance of states and the government and of their growing non-compliance with their obligation. Anton Giddens says that citizens are no longer necessarily identified with political parties, but with specific cause or claims. Like most poor countries, Mozambique is moving from dependence to another. One dependence, I mean, for another. From colonial dependence, it passed to ideological dependence that called communism, and now it has entered the phase of financial industrial dependence. This new form of dependence places structural limits on development insofar as it depends on the export sector and is under the monolithic control of multinational corporations. The question would be whether under these conditions, we can pursue national, endogenous, and sustainable government. Here, we understand that civil society has a major intervention role as a necessary and unavoidable agent in sustainable governance policies today. Furthermore, Mozambique today lives with the discovery or exploitation of natural or mineral resource and with the political military situation, a state which requires a new approach to social, economic, and political development. On the one hand, it is essential to encourage economic growth, but on the other hand, it is necessary that their condition of peace and security, as well as the fair and equitable redistribution of income. And this necessarily involves a fair, genuine, and sustainable government. Although, according to our constitution, Mozambique is in a regime of democratic rule of law and in a multi-party political system where there is a political space for action for opposition parties, for independent civil society organization, as well for the holding of regular election. Mozambique is still a serious democratic deficit crystallized in a fragile display of citizen interest, which is revealed through low levels of political participation, low citizen trust in state institutions due to its persistent poor performance. As recently, in one of his appearances, the former president of the Republic of Mozambique, Armando Emílio Guebuza, said that he did not trust the public prosecutor's office. However, it's important to highlight some organizations that are doing their best in participatory democracy, like Mask Civil Society Alliance Mechanism, CP Public Integrity Center, Yes Institute for Social Economic Studies, ODR Rural Development Observatory, FMO Budget Monitoring Fund, Catholic Church through letters from the Episcopal Conference of Mozambique and the National Commission for Justice and Peace. So in order to materialize this type of sustainable government, there must be a broad mobilization of the population in the debate and participation in the resolution of the local needs, raising awareness of the construction of a nation where the issues of people and of the country are a priority. Because governance implies a transformed society, improving people's standards of life, allowing everyone to have access to healthcare, education, and food. There are several reforms that should be implanted and would greatly contribute to governance and the improvement of democratic process in the country. First, must be the balance of power between the many political forces and the social actors must be greater. Rules and regulations must be applied fairly and transparently. The rule of law must be respected, and the mechanism for popular participation must be transformed into simpler consultation process. Mozambique, concluding, Mozambique governance is still very incipient and deficient. In order to materialize the sustainable government where everyone is called to participate, not all political parties, there must be a broad mobilization of the population. These governments will not work if only a few dictated the policy that a country must adopt. Ensuring democratic decision-making implies ensuring that there is a broad participation far beyond experts, economists, and politicians. So, it's required for the state to obtain the opinion and the approval of civil society or all mankind, since the virtue of democracy or sustainable governance is to act and defend decisions in a transparent way. According to a certain philosopher and sociologist, Habermas, the more the citizens participate in the construction of the social development project and the fundamental resolution, the more is linked, the more society is structured and the social institutions work better. All decision political participation process required knowledge and information. The right to access to public information is enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of Mozambique. In reality, however, we found that access to information on governance, politics, or agenda, like plans, budgets, reports, or the implementation of annual plans and budget execution is still very limited or secretive. Thus, the right to access to public information, which is one of the conditions sine qua non for full and real political participation in order to attain sustained government, is at stake. However, although participatory, deliberative, and concerted democracy is unavoidable in the process of sustainable government, it does not mean that representative democracy no longer makes sense. Not well. We mean that it is necessary to combine entirety implies a deep articulation between representative democracy, which is composed by those who make the rules, and participatory democracy, which is composed by those who discuss the social issues, those who really live and feel the daily life problems, and they can say what is priority for people. We used to say in Portuguese, unidos somos mais fortes, juntos faremos proezas. That is, united we are stronger, and together we will do feats, deeds, marvelous things. In Latin, we can say, as the poet Rui Noronha says, Africa surget ambula. That is, Africa, get up and walk. Or we can use the words of Obama. Yes, we can. It's time for Africa. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Pedro. It's really a pleasure to hear from Mozambique, and thank you for your insightful speech. We'll also hear from Dr. Paulino. So it's a great pleasure for us. Our conference is truly Pan-African. We have run through almost all the nations of the continent, all the sides at least, all the directions. I thank you very much. And I will see, I hope I will see you next year in our second International Pan-African Conference. And
thank you very much.
Salute.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure for me to.
So, because of time, we can't continue more than this. Our afternoon session will continue at 2 p.m. East African time. So we have now come to the end of the morning session of our International Conference of Pan-Africanism. I thank you very much, all the participants. አንድ ፔፐር ነው ያለ አንድ ኪኖት ስፒች አለን አንድ ከጋምቢያ ገባለ ያለ ልጅ አለ ባለቀ ሰዓትም ትንሽ እንዳነሰን ብሩክ አለ እየጠበቀን ነበር ተው እንጂ ግን እዚህ ላይ አልገባም ገባ አይተዋለሁ ተው እንጂ ብሩክ ማለት ብሩክ ማን ነበር መሰለህ ማን ነው ገብቶ ነበር ሲስተም
Good morning. Sorry.
ችግር የለውም ቢገባም ሶስት ፔፐር ማኔጅ ማድረግ ይችላል አዎ ከሰዓት
Good morning.
ብስራት ነው
ንጉስም አለ በቅርብ ነው የገቡት እንግዲህ ችግር የለውም ማኔጅ ማድረግ እንችላለን
Hello.
እሺ
Hello?
ተሳታፊዎቻችን our program will continue in the afternoon.
Okay.
So have a nice lunch.
Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Your sound is not good.
Hello. Do I am hearing it too?
ይሰማል ተስፋ አምላክ?
ይሰማል? Hello. 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 አይሰማም? Hello. Do I am hearing to you? Hello. Hello. ይሰማችኋል? Hello. 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 አይሰማም?
You are not good in sound.
አይሰማም? Hello. 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 Hello.
Mr. Getnet, have you heard?
Hello. Do I am hearing by you? Do I am hearing by
Okay.
you? I am Mr. Tasfamlak.
Okay.
Hello.
You can continue.
Hello. Okay. Give me confirmation. It's not hearing. I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing to you. Please give me your confirmation.
Hello.
እየተሰማኝ አይደለም። እየተሰማኝ አይደለም። ይሰማችኋል? Hello. Did I share the slide? Hello. Hello.
Continue.
Okay. Okay. My name is Tasfamlak Gizau. I'm from Dilla University, Dilla, Ethiopia. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee, the Tabor University especially, which communicate us with our African friends from Mozambique, Nigeria, and Kenya, and elsewhere. So I thank you. I would like to present it with less sensitive words. So my title of presentation in this conference is Relative Effectiveness of Monetary Policy and Fiscal Policy on Economic Growth in Ethiopia. By the way, the policy which we follow is not free from the influence of Western. So I would like to make it Pan-African kind of presentation. So to begin with the presentation, the outline of, sorry. Okay, to begin with this outline, the presentation has introduction part. And this introduction part, I will summarize background statement of the problem and the objective. And the second part, I will try to show the methodology part, and the other result and discussion. Finally, I conclude my presentation. So let us begin with introduction. In global view, fiscal policy by it means, or monetary policy, we are talking about their instruments of fiscal and monetary policies. For example, the instrument of fiscal policy are tax and government expenditure, and the monetary expenditure instruments are interest rate, required reserve ratio, and money supplies. Therefore, manipulating these instruments will give us a healthy macroeconomy in the level of economy. So fiscal and monetary policy, they are macroeconomic issue. These policy are not free from disagreements, but there is general consensus between this the use of this prudent fiscal and monetary policy, that is from the theory. Some theories focus on the fiscal policy role, and the other focus on the monetary policies. From this classicalist, almost they freed from this physical policy and make it the economy led by demand and supply, which is market cleaning. And the other Keynesian economists and Keynesian itself, they appreciate the intervention of government, which is fiscal policy, by just manipulating government expenditure and tax. The other one, the monetarists, also focus on the money supply to determine the output level output level implement and price in the economy. So to come to the points of this presentation, meanwhile, macro policy making in Africa has been primarily derived by influence of international financial institutions such as World Bank and IMF. For example, the international institution suggested in 1980s and in 1990s structural adjustment program and poverty reduction strategy paper. This paper is still implementing in many parts of Africa, and mediated through aid conditionalities. Therefore, this has taken the form of conservative monetary and fiscal policy combined with market liberalization and less state intervention, less state intervention. Also, this macro stance and its macro policy content remain fundamentally unchanged today, and externally driven macro policy stance is compounded by political economy of policy making internally. Therefore, from this, the external and internal policy making is very make complexity in policy making. So the mixing or amalgamation of this policy may be complex and mislead the policy making. Similarly, in Ethiopian context, the same from the 1990s, the reform totally accept structural adjustment program, which appreciate privatization, devaluation, and deregulation and the like. So this is totally the advice of the IMF and World Bank, or totally by international financial institution, and which is not which is not based on the context of African or Ethiopian economy policy making. So our policy making, which is determined by National Bank, focuses on mainly price stability, exchange rate stability, then toward the economy growth. Similarly, the fiscal policy, which is also aimed to bring about distribution of income or equal distribution of or fair distribution of income, and then economic growth through government expenditure toward proper program and safety nets program. So in general, the problem like unemployment, inflation, income inequality, trade deficit, and other macro problems. But in tandem with this, we believe that our economy grow, especially from 2004 forwards. So the economy is growing, and it is registered economy which is more than 2 digits before 3 years, but now we take this data as a 9% growth rate from the 2024 and 2018. And here, however, the economy is growing, but the inflation is still serious because the food price is high in Ethiopia, and similarly, non-food prices are very high. So the general price is still the problem of macroeconomy in Ethiopia. And also, the economy is unable to withdraw from the macroeconomy problem. Still, income distribution is a problem. Unemployment is a problem in our country. Therefore, the aim of this paper is to investigate the relative effectiveness of political and monetary policy on economic growth. So I would like to note the participant in this conference a policy which is internally influenced by financial institution, and solely externally influenced by international financial institution, and internally also has an implication of politics. So we are still not free from policy making. So we are not free from making our policy based on the economy activity of Ethiopia or Africa. So this is what I would like to note here in the conference. The methodology that I employed in this research is called the RDL model, and the RDL model by itself it appreciate or it encourage the use of time series data. So the data is collected from the different sources, and as per the techniques of econometrics or economics, we employ different techniques from the model specification and to the stationary test and diagnosis tests. So this is the general specification of the model, and this one is the same specification, but finally we will reach the specification which shows this is output as a function of capital, labor force, government expenditure, which is the proxy of physical policy, M, which is money supply, which is the proxy of money supply, consumer price index, which is proxy for the inflation, for official exchange rate, which is likely used to show how depreciation affect our economy and the like. So this is the by short run and the long run equation of the RDL model. So it is better to go to the result and discussion. It's better to go to by itself. In economics, we should have to test stationarity to elevate the relationship between variable with nonsense relationship. So if the variable stationary related without testing the stationarity, so the mean has variation, so there is nonsense relationship between the variable. So the stationarity result shows the variables are stationary at level, but non-stationary at same level, but at first difference they are not. So still in this technique, in bound test technique, sorry, in RDL technique, we use tests of bound test to see both short run and long run results of the model. So the bound test, it tells us there is long run relationship which is implied by F statics and co-integration. So this is the result, short run and long run result. From this table, here the table shows the variables. I need to specify it. For example, this variable, foreign exchange, sorry, the government expenditure positively and significantly affect our economy in the short run. At the same time, monetary policy affect positively and significantly in the short run. But here, exchange rate and devaluation and inflation is negatively affect our economy. Inflation negatively affect our economy in the short run, but this foreign exchange devaluation, even if it is positive, it is insignificant in the short run. Look at the model result from the long run. So this long run result shows if still our physical policy shows positive and significant effect on our economy, but the monetary policy aim is positive but insignificant in the long run. So the foreign exchange rate devaluation is negatively affecting our economy. Devaluation, you mean devaluation, depreciation of our currency, it's make us losing. So the inflation is also negative. So from this result, both in the long run and the short run, physical policy is physical, which means government expenditure on proper growth, government expenditure on safety net, government expenditure on different income balancing activity is significant and positive, which is not advised by the international financial institution, the IMF and World Bank. So here the monetary policy, which is insignificant in the short run, even the devaluation, which is parts of structural adjustment program in 1980s and in 1990s, it is negative impact on, it has negative impact on the long run. Negative impact. It's not only insignificant, it has a negative impact on the long run, because we are exporting a primary voluminous or large tons of agricultural product, but we are importing expensive and machinery products. So the trade imbalance is still negative for Ethiopia. You can assure the data from the national bank or any kind of source assures still our trade balance and the overall balance of payment is negative for long period of time, long period, starting from the Imperial Haile Selassie period regime. So this is the result which I achieved in this conference, which I found in these researches. In general, the model is RDL. So the configuration shows there is short run and long run results. The short run result shows fiscal policy is significant, and as well as monetary policy is significant, but the long run model result shows fiscal policy is effective, but monetary policy is not effective, meaning that fiscal policy is more effective than the monetary policy, but it doesn't mean monetary policy is not good for Ethiopian economy. It means that monetary policy has a problem of formulation or policy making. It still has to work to amend or to change or to bring better policy in the terms of interest rates, or which encourage private investment, required reserve ratio, which is also encourage the investment if the national bank relax it. So this variable should have to make amended, and the macro policy making in general should be more endogenous and more creates coordination with physical policies. So this is what I would like to present in this conference. Thank you for listening. If you have any comments, you are welcome. Yes, I'm from Dilla University. I miss.
Your specialization?
My specialization is first policy making in my MSc, and now I am PhD candidate in development economics, and the first one MSc is policy analysis, economic policy analysis.
Okay, thank you very much for enlightening us from the financial dimension of Pan-Africanism. It's really a great analysis. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, we'll have a question and answer session at the end. Please stay joined.
Okay.
Now we'll go to South Africa if our speaker is online. Kabala, do you hear me?
Loud and clear. Can you hear me there?
Okay, I can hear you. So it's your time. You have 20 minutes. Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much, and greetings to everyone. I plead you may bear with me, actually on the road, but when it comes to Africa, we have to put everything that we have for the reconstruction. Now, my approach within the few time that I have to discuss about Pan-Africanism, I think my approach will be focused on one thing, the time at which we are today, and actually is a question to all of us to understand or to question ourselves, what time is it? Because time dictates behavior, time dictates attitude, and time dictates actions that people have to implement according to the time that people are going through. Now, talking about that, one thing I can say is that we need to realize that we are now at a time of danger, time where the situation or the customs as we have had them are now changing. But most importantly, my point is, as the time is changing or is a time of danger, it's also a time of opportunity, because danger and opportunity are the two sides of the same coin. We just need to look properly on the other side to see opportunities, in the face of the danger that we might be facing. Now, I'm going to explain to you quickly why is this time a time of danger, and what are the possible opportunities that we can eventually exploit within the midst of all the troubles that we are facing now, or the danger that we are facing currently. The first thing that we have to understand is that the world is dramatically changed. Where we came from, we had a world that was governed or led by religious leaders, the priests, so to say. When you talk about the Egyptian pharaohs, these were religious leaders who were at the same time at the head of the states or the governors of their nations. When I talk about the popes, it's all the same. These people had religious authority as well as political authority to govern their nations. As time evolved, the religious leaders were replaced by pure politicians. That's why today we don't talk about the time of priests or of the so-called God's chosen people. We are now talking about politicians, pure politicians who are now governing our nations, with all people's activities. Now, as we're speaking now, the same change that happens with religious leaders, when you look properly at today geopolitical dimension of the world, whether you consider economy, politics, everything, every area, all the 9 areas of human activities, you will see that the politicians who have been the masters on these areas for a long time are now being replaced. They are now being replaced with what we can call the money managers of the world, or the economic or the financial engineers of our world, are the ones now who are in the control, almost getting in that position to take over the control of the entire world, to control our politicians. And they will, if they succeed, they will make our politicians useless as the priests are useless today in terms of nation management. And the question now that we need to ask, what is the danger of this to us as human beings, as a human family? In fact, it is very dangerous to us, because when you look at the motivation at the core of capitalism is to make profits. All right, sorry. For people who are motivated only for one sake, which is to make profits, to make money, it will be dangerous for us to have a hope for a better life, for justice and full equality in this context, because where we are heading to a harsh slavery, if we don't change the situation in a way that we reverse things to make our states to be powerful and to be in charge of our lives instead of individual private capitalists who are now about to control the whole world. Because when you look at it, in 2016, for example, we had 62 people in the world that possessed as much as the half of the wealth in the world. Now, 1 year later, which was now 2017, it was only 8 men who had the wealth. Their wealth combined together was the half, was equivalent to half of the world's population. So this is possible that one day one person can own as much as the half of the world wealth, and it's going to be even possible that one person can get wealthy equivalent to the entire global earth wealth. That is why we had them as millionaires. Today they are billionaires, multi-billionaires, and they're racing for what? Trillions in their bank accounts. Now, this will give them the opportunity to buy an entire nation, for example, to buy an entire country, or to buy the ocean, so that for us to live, we must pay directly to them. For us to use the water, clean water, we must pay directly to them. And that's a situation, if we don't change things, we are heading to. That's the danger I'm talking about. However, what is the opportunity of that? The opportunity that presents to us is that we have a chance now to use the same formula. It's not a new formula. It is the old same formula that was tried by Marcus Garvey, the formula that was tried by Kwame Nkrumah, the formula that was tried by all the Pan-African revolutionaries that we have had in this world. And that formula is African unity. It is the Pan-Africanism. That is what we have to try now. That's the opportunity actually that we have, because every time something great, or every time we have heard a breakout in this world, it's always at a point where where the situation is more culminant. Let me rephrase myself. Every major breakout in this world took place at the moment where the situation was challenging, right? Technological breakouts took place at the moment where people were facing some tough situations. Therefore, they had to enlarge their thinking to find some technological means to deal with the situation that they were finding. So the same way today, we are facing a situation of an international imperialism that is called globalization, that is posing a threat to Africa particularly. Then it is an opportunity for us to enlarge our thinking and come up with the solution that is structured within the ideas of Pan-Africanism. One thing that we need to realize as African people, as I said, that we are in a time of danger, is that Africa is always the richest land in the world. It's still actually, and Africa has things that many people want because they cannot do or survive without what we have as resources. And on top of that, they have never wanted to pay for. Therefore, they will always find an excuse to invade Africa. So if you find yourself, you have something that many people want because their survival depend on that, and they cannot do without what you have, what you possess, you must always prepare for war because you are in danger. Because every time they have to survive, they must take what you have, but they don't have the means to pay for that. They must destroy you so that they can possess what you have. That's the situation of Africa today. So the question is, in the face of this danger, how can we exploit the opportunity to survive or to protect ourselves and defend ourselves? We must come up with a rational and pragmatic Pan-Africanism. When I'm saying about rational and pragmatic Pan-Africanism, I'm not talking about only making speech about how unity is important, but we must have an agenda of what we are going to do when we are united. Let me give you one example. As we're speaking right now, in 2016 in Africa, we spend 42 billion individually for our national armies. Every country in Africa spend, when we bring that money together, it was 42 billion US dollars for national defense system. But when you look in Africa, there's no one single country that can challenge France, that can challenge Britain, that can challenge America. Why? Because we are weak. This money was spent mostly for the protection of head of states, actually for them to drive in armed vehicles, to have more protection and to live in luxuries, but not for the real protection of us as people at the grassroots levels. However, with the rationale, pragmatic Pan-Africanism, we will think first of all for the protection of Africa. Therefore, we can bring this money together to build a continental army system or defense system, not to protect one individual country, but to protect the whole continent of Africa. Because even though we like much to have economic power, we need to understand a person who goes in the market to buy a Lamborghini or an expensive car, but it doesn't have a place to park that car, it doesn't have a secure house where he can park that car, is a fool, because he's going to park that car in the street and the next morning you will find the car stolen. It is the same thing that we doing today. We want economic power, but we don't know, or we don't question how are we going to defend our economy. You cannot go for economic power unless you have the power to defend that economy, because every time you are powerless and you build economy, you are building that economy for your oppressors. That's what happened in 2011 with Muammar Gaddafi. He had a lot of billions of US dollars, but Africa didn't have the power to protect itself against NATO and against imperialism, right? And Muammar Gaddafi was killed. His money was stolen by Barack Obama. We need to learn from that history to understand that at this moment, it's only rational and pragmatic Pan-Africanism that can serve Africa. We have to move away or to shift from national 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 romance national romance that we have, or whatever that we do in the context of national boundaries that I call personally colonial enclosures that were created to confuse us, to keep us away from each other so that they can easily control us. We need not to embark in a collaborative and collective efforts to rebuild Africa. There's no need to rebuild Zambia. There's no need to rebuild Congo. There's no need to rebuild Somalia, because the problem or the cause of the problem in the first place was not Zambia, Congo, or all these colonial enclosures. It was Africa. Our backbone has been broken, and we need to restore that. And that we can do only through Pan-Africanism. So this is my take for this conference within the time that was allocated to me, to emphasize that we need to change things, and we don't have to send this responsibility to the future generation. We are the ones who have to make it happen. Why? Because we are this generation. I'm seeing some elders in this conference. We have seen the world in two dimensions. We have seen the world in the 1990s, where we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have smart cars, smart TVs. If I had a need to come to you, I would have traveled all the way to your place to fellowship with you. So life was organic then. But now when you look at life now, we have smartphones, smart TVs, smart whatever, sometimes even smart people, right? So now there's no need to go physically interact with the people, use smartphone. Even the food that we're eating is no longer organic. Everything is organically modified. So the kids that are born after us, they don't know the world as we knew it, where the Ubuntu philosophy was emphasized. They know the world where robots or internet is doing everything instead of us organically interacting. So we understand the world as it has changed, and we are the ones who can put in place this, or put in practice this agenda of Pan-Africanism. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Kabbalah. I'm speaking to you from South Africa. I'm a member of the African Continental Unity Party, and I'm a member of the Free-Minded Pan-African Academy, which is the Academy for African Leaders or future leaders in politics and business. We believe that for us to change Africa, we must tackle firstly the education, and that education must create leaders that are competent in politics leadership, political leadership, and business leadership, because they too are the backbone of every nation. Just like a man needs left and right legs to work together in balance, a nation needs leaders who are competent in politics and in business. Because when we don't have that balance, we have a situation where we have today, where we have resources, but we go to borrow from China, from England to build our nations. And that money gets to be paid with the blood of the poor people. Peace and power to all of you. Thank you very much. Pan-Africanism always, and Pan-Africanism every day.
Very much, brother. It's a great speech from a great country. We Africans expect South Africa to be our model of economic advancement and political democratic advancement. So please be informed that we are expecting to have an exemplary journey. I thank you very much. We have been informed and lectured in the morning by Professor Mamomocha about Ubuntu, the concept of Ubuntu and math. It's really a great pleasure. Sorry for the confusion because of the difference in the time zones. So now is the time to hear from Dr. Paulino from University of Zambezi. Are you hearing me, Dr. Paulino?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, so it's your turn, brother.
You are seeing my presentation? I want to share my presentation. You see?
Yes. Yes.
You see my presentation?
Perfect. Continue.
Yeah. I'm João Paulino, come from Mozambique, Zambezi University, Faculty of Science, Social Science, Humanity, Department of Economics, Science. So I present my note of the Ending Africa Development. Time is okay. Yeah. And my outline is first of all, I present you introduction, methodology, result, conclusion, and the recommendation. In my introduction, I say that the Pan-African is an ideology advocate, the same government of Africa with want ruling out the possible of cooperation with the West outside of colonization. The Pan-African idea as to from the only African state, the African Union free of colonization by host imperialism. Today, Africa countries are facing several problems like secular hungers, malnutrition, and persistent poverty. Corruption and nepotism are associated with this problem, which end on persecution, assassination, civil wars, and corpse act. Then my question is, what's the missing for the persecution, assassination, wars, or corpse that occur so that the development strategy designed by the African can achieve socio-economic development and thereby realize the Pan-African dream, which is to free for the people and the land from colonization, racism, political and economic discrimination. So when I wanted to ask this question, I tested the two hypotheses. The first one, the vulnerability of Africa is the face of Western technocrats with the specific to knowledge of technical and the technology of African to explore available resource, for example, oil and gas, gold, diamond, timber, and transform them into welfare distributor. The second, the greed, corruption, and the nepotism of leaders of African political movement decline for themselves, the family and the friend, all the health of the country at the expense of the rest of the citizen. And the second hypothesis, the persistence of the Western imperialist and colonialist concept that Africa is a continent discovered by the Western to exploit. Methodology, I use the disk ratios, bibliography, which considered the consult secondary sources, Marconi, Lacat, Prodave, and Command. Now I present my result. The first all of my result, almost the lecture as right in Africa's characteristic is content discovered by Europeans in the period of the precious material trade. On example of Sabine or writing, when established colonies of the Africa coast of Mediterranean around the 10th century was described the Africa phonetic discovered Africa. The same was said for Greeks and the Roman when they occupied Africa in the 7th century, 2nd century. The third, in the also writing of the Diaspora of the rich of the Africa continent and therefore dominate the region of their interest, having agreed among themselves on the vision of Africa. The second result, the expansion of industrial colonialism in the 19th century created an era of neoliberalism And the European powers such as the German, Belgium, and Italy reached massive into Africa. This rush led to the Berlin Conference of the Partition of Africa. In this conference, norm of occupation of Africa and the non-invasion of other areas were instituted. Thirdly, the partition of Africa was done in arbitrary ways. It did not respect the ethical and cultural characters of African people, did not take care of the division of Africa tribal. The mishandling of ethical, cultural, and tribal issues contribute and continue to contribute the occurrence of the internal ethical conflict and wars in many countries of Africa continent. This internal ethical conflict and wars for the most part of supported by the whole core of Western imperialists who offer army material to the strongly ethnic movement. Consequently, in this diverts all attention of African implementation the economic development plan. 14. The two old hours the proposed West country in under Pan-African ideology oriented the creation condition to consolidate the Pan-African idea of free Africa from the political and economic domination of the European imperialists. The independence of Africa was not accepted voluntarily of the freedom granted to Africa were characterized by apparent political independence because all the independent Africa countries known the them made of division of the decision to divide their territory administratively based on ethical or other form of Africa organization. The idea of forming a single Africa state created from the humanist sense of the Pan-Africa order who indicated that Africa have the capacity to form their own national and self-government without spacing Western support. The project of Africanizing Africa from self-governance with Western support placed Africa is a situation of political vulnerability. In a situation of political vulnerability, leading them to create a national state based on Western principle that they are lost to dominate. It is created the concept of economic dependence of Africa country on a financial resource. Based on the development theory of modernization and the dependence school of 15 and 19 years, the new partnership of Africa Development NEPAD was created on OWA with the aim of eradicating poverty in Africa country and thereby creating sustainable development in the ground. NEPAD was received recently on activity relationship between peers, democratic and good political, economic, and corporate government and financial support from European partners. Unfortunately, NEPAD was owned exclusively by Africa head of state and the government with input from the Union, IMF, and the other all the banks of exclusively of leaders of Africa movement that they are not in governments. Under the NEPAD, the big decision on economic governance in Africa country are carried up to accomplish with the economic reform of a World Bank. Currently, an Africa state government will make a macroeconomic decision must go to get the technocratic, bureaucratic consent of a FME and the Bank Africa, and World Bank. The structural adjustment program of the World Bank and the FME recommended the Africa government to ensure balance of payment balance and economic growth. To achieve this, African economics should be liberalize price control, reduce public spending, and abolish subsidy of different sectors. This seems a good measure to solve the problem of budget deficit and deterioration in terms of trade of Africa countries, but in the fact, direct the performance of African economics to export of unprocessed good and import the finished good to the determinant of the development of economic industrialization. The Africa agriculture has been the subject of political and economic advice from all the bank and FME among various diverse investment in plantation market, to not practice agriculture intensive to agro-technical with high capacity machinery. As far we has no restriction the use of agricultural technical and wave machinery has to be with agriculture contribution environment problem. However, Africa agriculture contributes less than 2% in the cause of environment deterioration because the most African farmers are enabled in the family sector with intensive use of output that denote degradation of with environment. Education was an instrument used from domination of men during the colonialism period, but also is an important instrument for the formation of human capital. The World Bank in the FME and other organizations, the international organization, have supported Africa to build human capacity, their direct resources to expand the school infrastructure and train the teacher in the structure. This beneficial intervention carry with it intention of the hardcore of imperialists to lead African to not master science and technology by advancing the introduce the automatic class passage of children. The automatic class passage leads many children to reach advanced level of schooling without mastering the science and the technique, reading and writing. Of the first independent Africa, more than half have been involved in conflict, in persecution and assassination groups and civil war. The persecution and assassination stem from understanding, look of cohabitation spirit, grief, corruption, and nepotism of the African leader in power. In conclusion, Africa is a continent with the resources that give it the almost absolute advantage over other countries. The availability of resources give the possibility to develop and ensure the welfare of its people. Pan-Africanism has an ideological movement that aimed to liberate the African people and land. Unfortunately, some of the members of the Pan-African movement and all followers have deviated over time from the goal, no large fighting for the collective as they did at the time of the liberalization struggle of country and people. For a self-interest attitude devoid of Smith's moral feeling, greed, corruption, and nepotism. The African elite is power beginning to persecute and murder their African brother and sister, and the response they persecuted begin to carry out crops and cops and hours supported by the hardcore colonialists. The persecuted groups also respond with cops and ways between brothers, which for the most part were supported and maintained by the hardcore of Western imperialism. As a consequence, economic and social infrastructure is destroyed, hunger and misery, and as a result, poverty emerged. Will the brother are fighting the imperialist hardcore is exploring African resource as a road around for their support of the way and the COP's date. The program of economic restructuring and the started the Africa design cannot for the most part with the technical and the financial assistance from West country, the FME and the World Bank, which means that one must obey their command and the dedicate. Recommendation. I recommend the reduce of eliminating green corruption and nepotism. Remember and or revisit the Pan-African objective. The program and strategy, although they count on the support of international agents in the Western country, must first count on their honor, strength, and assume the process of instruction in the education of their peoples. Thank you very much. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Hello.
Paulino. I thank you very much for your commitment and for your humility since we start to communicate for this purpose. I thank you. We will continue communicating, and I hope we'll have a better Pan-African conference next year. I thank you very much. Now we are going to have a brief question and answer session. Those of you who are online, show us your hands up. Until then, we will continue. We will continue our discussion from here from the host call. So it's time to discuss, ask, comment, mainly to ask to give us your comments, so that our next year Pan-African conference will be a better one than what they have today. Yes. Hello. DTU. Yeah. From Boulevard University. Hello. አስተያየት እንግዲህ ስጡን ከእናንተ መጀመሪያ እንውሰድ ከዛ በኋላ ኦንላይን ጥያቄ አስተያየት የሚሻሻል ያለበት ነው የምናስተካክለው ለኔክስት ያው አጠቃላይ በይዘቱም ላይ ሀሳቦች ካሉ ብዙ እንዳይገባናል እኛ ራሱ የምናውቀው ነገር አለ እንደተደረበ ግን ያው የመጀመሪያም ስለሆነ ኔክስት ይር በእርግጠኝነት ከዚህ የተሻለ አጠቃላይ ጠቅላላ እንዲሻሻል ፕሮግራም ጠንክሮ እንዲቀጥል የአመታዊ ኮንፈረንስ ነው የምናደርገው ከዚህ በኋላ
በሱ ላይ እንፈልጋለን አስተያየት ሆነ ነገር እንድትሉ I hope I have one question and need a solution. My question is how African countries how could not work together like this and different aspects to get Pan-Africanism is realizing is one question. And most of the times papers are around history. So does it history is correct and who the reference and the written of the history is by what? This is the basic question for any contradiction in poverty and most of the time for decades the African peoples are collided by history. So the problem is history in my view. So how African history will be rewriting? My question most of the time for Professor. Okay.
Dabala, unfortunately, I think he's not online.
Okay.
Solomon Allah.
Solomon.
Dabala yellam doctor.
No. Just I will I don't mind responding to Maleta. I think of all African histories, by far the most, by far, and a part of African history that could be regarded as scientific to me is the history of Pan-Africanism, because it's well documented and then we know exactly what happened when. So therefore, I don't think it would be a kind of history that would create controversy or a kind of history that would bring a lot of issues. Okay, like say for instance, Ethiopian history. Ethiopian history would generate a lot of oppositions, arguments, and so on and so forth. So in fact, I thought when I came here, I thought that Tabor University has already begun a program of Pan-African studies. I even thought that you guys are providing master's program for Pan-African studies. But at any rate, what I suggest is that introduction to Pan-Africanism, a course like Introduction to Pan-Africanism could be developed, and that could be given to all the first-year students of the university. My sense is that it wouldn't be as contradictory as it wouldn't be as controversial as Ethiopian studies or Ethiopian history. So by doing that, what you do is you would kind of introduce the students to the African world. And the basis of introducing the students to African world would be Pan-Africanism. And what do you teach in Pan-Africanism? You teach exactly the history, the culture, the activities, and then one on a public level, and second at state level, because that's what we notice as far as the history of Pan-Africanism is concerned. People voluntarily started organizing themselves and creating an organization, and it eventually precipitated to what we call African Union, which was kind of run by state governments only without involving the public. So therefore, to teach that history, and then in that history, for instance, I could prepare a reading list in that introduction to Pan-Africanism. In that reading list, we will identify what we consider canonical texts, okay? Texts written by Kwame Nkrumah, W.B. Du Bois, Maya Angelou. There's a whole variety of excellent literature in Pan-African studies. So we will identify those, and then the students will be obliged to read those books. Okay, so you start like that. And then, you know, like say, for instance, W.B. Du Bois, a course can be created only about W.B. Du Bois in his works, his publications. Could be one course at advanced level. But in the introduction level, you'll introduce all of them. And then perhaps they don't have to read all of it, it may be a chapter 2. So that's, to me, the way I start. That's the way I institutionalize this process. I start a process, and the process would help us to kind of see what we have already created, and then how we could advance that. Okay, and then I also really sense at this moment the eagerness, the desire of especially young people is to see something better. It's not to continuously be bitter about situations. So therefore, I think Pan-Africanism, to me, is less controversial than teaching Ethiopian history, because Ethiopian history is a contested history. And then there are a lot of, you know, agencies. It's not one agency, there are a lot of agencies, so it becomes very difficult. So therefore, I think Debre Tabor University has really started something that could have a transformative value in the long run. So therefore, I would start with first introductory courses to be given to the first-year students, and then develop other courses at the same time, which they can take at second-year level and third-year level, and another fourth-year level. And then, of course, at least at Debre Tabor's level, I would like to see Pan-African Studies as a master program, MA program. So that's my suggestion.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Professor. Now we have one more presentation by Solomon. Yeah. Let's hear from Brooke Solomon first. Yeah. Solomon, are you hearing us? Solomon Kabeda, are you online? Brooke Shoadegif. Hello, Brooke Hisamal. Brooke Hisamal.
ይሰማል
ብሩክ ቀጥልልን እስኪ ስክሪን ክንሸር አድርገን 15 ደቂቃ አለ
ኦኬ Okay, can I start? Hello?
Yes, you can start, Brooke.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Brooke, and I'm going to present you on this topic titled Language and Politics in Sub-Saharan African Countries, with an emphasis on ethnicity and nation-state discourses, where my presentation assumes that the language factor to be intrinsically intertwined with politics in the region. And given the multilingual reality of Sub-Saharan Africa, this paper has come to the conclusion that any African studies discourse, and more specifically the political one, that avoids, a due recognition of the language factor to be a mediocre. With this in light, I may first try to scrutinize the two diametrically opposite explanations given for multilingualism, in which the one rests on presenting language diversity as an Achilles heel for all pygmies in the region, whereas the other stands quite on the contrary. Second, cognizant of the concomitance of the language factor with ethnicity, an attempt will be made to see how the language factor exacerbate otherness in the pre-colonial, in the colonial and post-colonial settings of sub-Saharan Africa. And then finally, I may try to discuss how the language factor is entangled in the post-colonial quest, which is a failed quest for a nation state in the sub-region. So I have outlined the presentation in such a way that will help me to deal with the aforementioned pointers. And this is the outline of my presentation, and then it will be presented as precise as possible. So to begin with, language and politics are intrinsically and highly related to one another. And for some, the language is founded in an exclusionary way as a means of distinguishing allies from enemies and of grooming allies from potential enemies. Others, in the same vein, would try to locate the emergence of a language on the need to form coalitions of a critical size that may represent an initial form of social and political organization. Individuals and philosophers like Aristotle, in his attempt of disclosing the enigma of the language factor vis-a-vis the political nature of human being, argued, I quote Aristotle now, yet it is an idea with a venerable heritage. Hence, it's evident that the state is a creation of nature and that man by nature is a political animal. Now, that man is more of a political animal than beast or any other gregarious animal is evident. Nature, Aristotle continues, as we often say, makes nothing in vain, and man is the only animal who shares endowed with the gift of speech. These and other similar argumentations show the very act of language as being potentially political in its very nature. And sub-Saharan Africa cannot be an exception in this regard. Of course, this sub-region is one of the most linguistically well-diversified regions in the world. And this diversity, to make things better or worse, it has been coupled with cultural and ethnic variation as well. This being the case, however, where language is everything in the sub-region, language is seldom thought of as a problem. But in fact, building stable national identities in vast majority of the sub-region remained a problematic task, mainly because of the language factor. Of course, colonialism can be one of the factors which made possible the entrenched ethno-linguistic divide. The scramble for Africa of the 1880s has carved sub-Saharan Africa into new political entities without paying any regard or without paying any heed to the long-standing social, cultural, and linguistic frontiers. That's why divergent ethnic groups became compact, as it was the case in Nigeria, while former unitary groups were dispersed into two or more nations, as it was evident, for example, in the Yorubas to be found in Nigeria and Benin, the Iwe-speaking people in Ghana, in Togo and Benin, and the Somalis in the east to be found in at least 4 or 5 political jurisdiction areas. Now, the disastrous consequence of such a scenario is highly reflected in the language factor. So now, since language is an important factor of identity formation and given the multilingual feature of the sub-region, any political discourse, as I've said it earlier, with sort of ethnic and nation state issues, found the language factor as a sine qua non, very crucial in bringing a holistic account of the case. So with this slide, I may try to now see the competing perspectives given on multilingualism. Now, we have two different views to emerge in explaining the language diversity in the sub-region. The first tries to argue that the multiplicity of African language is a bane of African unity, be it at the national or regional or continental level. So according to such a view, linguistic heterogeneity has been associated with all kinds of negative problems like poor economic performance, insufficient provision of public goods, high level of corruption, less social trust, and high probability of internal conflict are all attributed to language diversity. The second perspective sorry. And the second perspective
Share your screen, please. Blake,
yeah.
Brooke, would you please share us your screen?
Okay, I'm trying to sharing it. Okay. Is it visible?
Yeah.
Okay. Where is the full slide? Okay. So have you heard the previous points I made? So shall I continue?
Yeah, you can continue. Now it's full screen.
Okay. let me continue from where I have stopped or from the very beginning.
You stopped.
Okay, now the second explanation is based on a postmodern human rights discourse that actually sees the indispensability of multilingualism to be seen in the context of democracy and human rights, where the right of language choice should be seen as an integral part of fundamental human rights. So for this school of thought, multilingualism is considered rather as an asset. Others would try to show their ambivalence over the issue of multilingualism, would try to demonstrate their ambivalence with an argument that says why multilingualism can be cause for the continent's predicament on the one hand, but this multilingualism have given the African a broader understanding and enrich him culturally to finally obtain a tolerant and amiable personality. But what's more important for me beyond such an or debate is the need to accept the fact that the sub-region is linguistically well diversified, and language in and of itself, language per se may not be a problem, but its management can play a great deal in making or unmaking to be a problem. Now, in the sub-region, where primordial conception of ethnic identity dominates the political landscape, the language factor needs a special attention as it is an essential marker of ethnic identity formation. So with this, I may try to see how the language and ethnicity are concomitant to each other, of course, very briefly. The language ethnic identity relationship discourse, it actually considered insight into the link between language and the culture. In the sub-region, each language and every language, it carries a distinct and hefty ethnic baggage. So we see strong emotional attachment to language ethnicity as a norm than an exception in the sub-region. That's why, as one linguist Fishman argues, the cultural paraphernalia of the sub-region is shaped by its language. So each and every ethnic group in the sub-region is there to express itself and identify itself by the language it speaks. And but before the advent of colonialism, we can probably argue that Africans used to live in a distinct ethnic and linguistic group. For instance, in Ghana, the Akan saw themselves as a state, and the Akan language, it performed a dual function, where on the one hand, it brought the Akan people together, and on the other hand, it set them apart from other ethno-linguistic communities. So in the sense, each African language can carry, or it can serve as a way of self-manifestation and defining intra-ethnic communication. That's why some argues that language in the sub-region is said to constitute the sole heart of ethnicity, since it's hardly possible to talk of ethnicity short of a language in the sub-region. And because the language and ethnic identity issues were intricately intermingled and always in the same direction. That's why, as Fishman eloquently put, language is oftentimes a passport to ethnic origin, but at the same time, ethnic background was indexical of a given language. But with colonialism, new political frontiers entered the ethnic divide, where inhabitants were subjected into being torn between their ethnic and linguistic allegiance on the one hand and allegiance to the state, which is still a problematic task, especially in with regard to establishing a nation state in the sub-region. So this situation had resulted in political unrest in many parts of Africa. Actually, in many parts of Africa, we see, it led to the imposition of European language in the sub-region in the name of unity and neutrality. So because the European languages were considered to be they were considered potentially able to bring unity and nation building that could facilitate pacification of the conquered territories. But despite the presumption, Sub-Saharan Africa in the 60s and 70s has saw the blossoming of ethno-linguistic revival movements. Because the ethnic consciousness of the time, it brought with it a reawakening of resentful feelings, which actually empirically been observed in, for example, the secessionist attempts in Biafra, the anti-scale movement in Ghana, a strong ethno-linguistic feeling at times even led to ethnic cleansing, as it was observed in Rwanda and Burundi, and civil wars in Liberia. And more importantly, the intricately intermingled characteristics of language ethnicity have brought with it a unique kind of political exclusionism and unique voting pattern system. And politicians, the states can simply win over the votes of their members of their ethno-linguistic groups in spite of their professional incompetence at the detriment of the meritocracy. The current Ethiopia can be a best example in this regard. Of the estimated 70 or so of the parties, very few of them have actually transcended the ethno-linguistic divide. And the ruling coalition itself, before the alleged reform, remained to be a formation of parties which were So still in this country, the political modus operandi has made ethno-linguistic identity and politics almost inseparable. To make things even worse, the country has instituted a reliable kind of federal structure based on an ethno-linguistic formula, which actually some argues may cause dismemberment of the country as well. So generally, what's not uncommon in the sub-region is the linkage of multilingualism with ethnicity. Language diversity has been coupled with strong ethnic feelings. So despite the failed quest for building a nation state in the post-colonial setting, ethno-linguistic identities shows their resilience as members of their ethnic groups, displayed and entrenched strong solidarity and loyalties that cannot transcend their respective ethno-linguistic groups. So still, ethno-linguistic sentiment remains a formidable challenge to the promotion of unity in the sub-region. Now, I would like to see how the language factor gets entangled with the quest, which is actually a failed quest for an establishment of a nation state in the sub-region. The idea of a nation state is a big concept. The definition remained elusive, but for the purpose of my presentation, I just picked Delante's definition, which he has said, nation state for him is the state is the government and it's an institution, and the nation is best described as some kind of grouping of people who identify themselves with each other, be it for cultural, ethnic, linguistic, or historical regions. So nation state for him is the marriage of the two ideas. Now, nation state, depending on such a perspective, nation state in the context of policy and planning operations in Africa, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, has remained to be a problematic task fundamentally for a couple of reasons. First, the narrative itself, the narrative of a nation state, which is really a result of the Westphalian Treaty. The narrative itself in Africa is marked by the arbitrariness of boundaries, which attended the Berlin Conference of the 1880s, in which ethnic nationalities were bisected, trisected, and even at times quadrisected, where diverse and in some cases conflicting aspirations were lumped together into one nation. Secondly, migration and displacement as a form of postmodern reality in the sub-region diffused once homogeneous communities, particularly in the urban areas whereby it creates diverse aspiration. So these two challenges, at times jointly, some other times separately, pose a challenge for the absolute triumph of nation state in the sub-region. In this regard, the language factor is unimportant. It's just a sine qua non, I would say, in the post-independence sub-Saharan Africa quest for building a nation state. And more importantly, the central government-authored policies with respect to the language policies do not reflect the reality of language use needs and practices. And most of the countries in the sub-region do not have the official language of their own vernacular, or they have actually acquired a certain national language or working language in which they have which possess only modest competence. And this actually made the mainstream discourse on nation building towards an ideological position that expounds what we may call technically official monolingualism. And this official monolingualism was, from the point of view of the heterogeneous reality of the sub-region, is expected to conform to the Westphalian model of a nation state. And this underlyingly is all about hegemonic imposition of one superior language over a less vernacular one. And most post-colonial African countries have been tempted, and they were advised to adopt such models. But import of such policies is basically, as some would argue, is social Darwinist, which a priori accepts the essential evolutionary difference to exist between human societies, with some being more advanced than others, and thus eventually actually, which legitimizes colonialism in the end. And moreover, this policy of nation state, or the Westphalian kind of a nation state, would actually demand what we may call exoglossic monolingualism, meaning adopting one European language at official level in the name of neutrality and unity. And this disregards the historically grown socio-cultural realities in Africa, with roots in the continent's characteristic territorial multilingualism. So the ideological presupposition is that modern statehood in Africa need to be de-Africanized in order to match the Western prescription. In its recent edition in 2015, the ethnologue have given thumb 2,138 language, despite the language dialect argument to Africa. So as per this data, each African language can have over 40 languages. So that actually made the purely Westphalian notion of a nation state to make a little or no sense in the African context. Yeah, to conclude some of the points I have raised earlier, the issue of language in the sub-region dominates the political landscape in a wide range, especially in terms of ethnicity and nation state. And the politics of ethnicity and nation state, it cannot be seen, without the language factor, because language is an important part of ethnic identity formation. And then with the quest for an establishment of a nation state, again, language appears to be an important instrument. So it remains to be an important thing to be discussed. And this bond of ethnicity or ethno-linguistic identity will continue to be created by language and vice versa. So with the discourse of a nation state, although several different ethnic groups are claimed together into one polity, the sub-Saharan African situation still displays that the absence of strong sense of political belongingness. Still, people would actually prefer to have an allegiance towards their ethno-linguistic community than to the state. So in countries in which little or no emphasis has been given the African language and the intent was to unify the people or the country, ex-colonial language were opted in the guise of neutrality and unity, but the consequence was such disastrous. And it created a form of dejection among the critical mass, which extended to the exclusion of the larger populace from political and perhaps economic participation. So this again reinforced the people to intensify their links with their ethno-linguistic groups, which were linguistically and culturally accommodating. There can be things which I have not discussed in the discussion, and then I may enrich it with a Q&A session later on. So I thank you very much.
Brooke, for enlightening us on this very critical issue, the linguistics issue. Many believe that it is unlikely for Africans to be meaningfully free unless it is free linguistically. In fact, we do not use free colonial languages, but we are tagged with these colonial languages as Anglophone, Lusophone, Francophone, and even sometimes Arabophone. Even though only 2% of our population speaks these languages. So it's a very critical issue. We have to think and rethink. That is what Ngugi says, one of the dimensions with which Ngugi believes that needs decolonization. I thank you very much. Our next speaker is from South Sudan, Mr. Paul Dil Gum, who is a lawyer by training, former State Minister of Livestock and Fishery, Minister of Health, Minister of ICT, and currently Deputy Chairperson of the Rehabilitation Commission of the Republic of South Sudan, and member of the SPLM, and an ardent supporter of Pan-Africanism. You have been attending our conference for the last 2 days. I thank you very much for your interest. Please briefly give us your view on Pan-Africanism and on what shall be done in 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me to attend this important Pan-African conference. And first of all, I want to thank my brother Galwak Todd Mut, who actually reached out to me. I was traveling for the last 2 days, but I'm now currently in Nairobi. And my sincere appreciation to Debri Tabor University for organizing this first international conference. I've listened to some few speakers. I was having difficulties in the morning to log into the Zoom, but I'm finally here. So thank you so much, my brothers, and good afternoon to everybody. The Pan-African topic is, it has always been an on and off topic among the African leaders due to the fact that the African continent has not been liberated up to today. And the facts are very visible. They have pacified the African continent into two: the Francophone countries and the Anglophone countries. This was an attempt by the neo-colonialists or the colonial masters to keep the African followers and to keep the African societies pacified along the tribal enclaves and for them to advance their neo-colonial advances. Now, As we all know, in the African continent, one of my brothers was just talking before about the issue of the language. Personally, I'm one of the people that take Ethiopia as the mother of Pan-Africans in the continent, for simplest reasons. One, the struggle of Ethiopian people from 1936, when they resisted the Italian invasion and remain as the only African non-colonized country that should have been the nucleus for the Pan-African advancement towards the other African countries. However, despite the resistance of the Ethiopian people to resist the colonialism in their country, they still fell short to keep the heritage, the cultures, the norms, and advance them to meet the development that is going on in the world, and to continue to resist the attempts of dividing the people into a small enclave for the easy rule. If you go back a little bit into the history of Ethiopia, and all of you know it, during the Korean War of 1950 to 1953, if I'm correct there, the Ethiopian sent forces to help the South Korean in their war. Nowadays, Ethiopia will be looking towards South Korean for their support, whether financial or in terms of IT. Where did the strength of the Ethiopia that have helped the Korean War have gone to? The second thing is the importance of the African cultures and norms. I know African countries don't understand each other when it comes to the issue of the language, but still, Africans, based on the Pan-Africanism, we have similarities and cross-cutting issues in our cultures that, if developed, it can arise us into a common denominator of the language where the African societies will be able to communicate, will be able to understand each other. And this can only be done if we translate our cultures into educational system that has the basis whereby a South Sudanese can study in Ethiopia and be able to integrate easily into Ethiopian society. An Ethiopian can be in Kenya, can be in South Sudan, can be in Angola, can be in Zimbabwe, and find it easy for him or for her to integrate easily into the society of those countries based on the Pan-African principles. This has also been made difficult by how our policies of immigration and the borders lines have been designed by our leaders. Our leaders have fell short, and they have been strictly on the boundaries that were drawn to us by the colonial, trying to pacify us into smallest countries and keep us divided. One could even ask himself, how possible is it for a country of 1.4 billion people to be ruled by one president like China? Why American insisted to have Alaska? Just see how far Alaska is. Compare Alaska and Canada to the United States. Why did the United States pick Alaska to be part of the United States? The bigger the country is, the money the people are, the power that country is. But this, in African country, you will find that instead of having huge countries and powerful countries populated, you will see the colonial will divide us into smallest countries like Benin, like Mali, and they will continue to divide Africa into smallest group of people that are unable to communicate with even their next neighbors. You will find an African country in one of the South African country is more friendly, or in the West Africa, will be more friendly to France, Spain, more than being friendly to the next neighbor to them in the region. This is done to keep the hatred going, to keep us dividing ourselves, and to keep the Pan-Africanism not growing. And for them to advance it, they came out with the narrative. They came out with the narrative that Pan-Africanism is naive, Pan-Africanism is traditional, Pan-Africanism is not matching with the current modern world. But that's not true. We have countries that have maintained cultures, that have maintained their historical backgrounds, and there are very powerful countries in the world. For example, like the UK, one of the countries with an unwritten constitution currently, but still they have maintained the monarchy of Queen Elizabeth for centuries. And those cultures and the norms that they practice, they respect them. But still, they haven't been questioned by any African country. The two last points that I need to talk about is the misconception about the Pan-Africanism and the obstacles that are facing the Pan-Africanisms. The misconception, we will never have a reasonable debate over Pan-Africanism if it has not been introduced into the curricula of education, both in secondary school and the universities. We need to teach Pan-Africanism. It is wrong for us and for the younger generation to be studying about Queen Elizabeth, to be studying about Spain, to be studying about France and then the European wars, and not studying about how historical and how and the heroes and the heroines that we have in Africa. How did African independence were achieved, and how will it be maintained, and how do we project Africa in the next 50, 100, 200 years ahead of time? All these, they will not happen if we don't introduce Pan-Africanism into our curriculum of studies. The obstacles, in my view, that are facing the Pan-Africanism is how our current African leaders have the gut to misinterpret the Pan-Africanism. Because most of them, they are installed by some powerful countries in the world and will only be speaking into the tune of those countries. This misinterpretation by our leaders, our universities need to take upon themselves to come out with the clear projection of Pan-Africanism in terms of culture, in terms of education, in terms of politics, the political arrangement within Pan-Africanism concept. This, we will be inviting our leaders into those conferences to get to understand the need and the importance of Pan-Africanism in the continent. By doing so, our leaders will have the basis of advancing our foreign policies within the framework of Pan-Africanism. Because without doing so, the African population has been capped, not growing. The life expectancy in most of the African countries is about 55 to 60 years. You are already dead. The African continent is now the influx, the new colonialism that is happening in Africa is about the resources. And for them to get the resources, you must pit a brother against a brother. And we have seen what is happening in Congo, in the Eastern Congo for the last few days. And in the state of a neighbor coming in and support you to have a peace among yourselves, the neighbors are the one now encroaching to create more problems and to create more division among the people of one country. This is done in disadvantage of the people of Africa and to advantage the outsiders. Finally, I'm so happy, and I will find time and I will physically visit the Debri Tabor University, interact with some of the lecturers that I have just listened to before, and some of the students, and particularly the PhD students, and we need more. Pan-African is a day-to-day education. As much as we learn about it, we get to know that we have not learned about it, and we need to put our brains together, put our ideas together, and advance the Pan-Africanism. I thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul, for giving us a very interesting lecture, even though you are not in our list of presenters. I thank you very much. I hope we'll work all the year around, not only once in a year. Thank you so much. Now it's time to hear a concluding remark from our president, Dr. Annagagreng Gasho. So, Dr. Annagagreng, now it's your turn. Go ahead, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. It's very nice to meet you again. It has been really a very great day for all of us, and particularly it's a great day for Africa. We have been listening to speakers and papers that since the time that the Pan-African concept has been excuse me. Since the time of Pan-African concept has been into place, and since from the time of our ancient fathers and forefathers who really initiated the concept of Pan-Africanism. We have come to learn that we did not follow the path of our fathers, and we did not use this brotherhood and this initiative towards the unity and development of Africa. And as far as we are concerned, as far as this conference is concerned, we believe that we bring that issue back into the table for the discussion, for the dialogue. And we believe that we have really made that true, because we have been talking about Pan-Africanism, how we can use this concept for the greater Africa, for the solidarity, for brotherhood, for development, and for unity of Africa. So that's why I said it has been really a very great day for us and for Africa as well, because we believe that it starts like this, and I hope we will continue this path towards a greater length and towards achieving what is deemed to be important for Africa. So I would like to say congratulations, because we have started it. You know, we have been away from it quite for very long time. It has been on the minds of great people, but we did not use it in our day-to-day life, in our day-to-day Africa. And therefore, we are the son of Africa, started talking about it, and we will continue this towards greater length. Therefore, I am very happy to be part of this historical event. I am very impressed by how much this conference attracted scholars, and you know, I have come to learn that many Ethiopian universities have participated in this conference in a number of ways, and African brothers and institutions have been also part of this conference. I have learned that we happen to bring into the table something that is in the soul of Africans, which is already in our heart. We need this for a long time. And there has been a number of other seminars and conferences in other places. There has been a number of research works published in a number of articles and many other modalities. But we started talking about this, and I have come to learn that many people were attracted to it, from a young student like Gatlock and his friends to the distinguished professors in the area. And African brothers and institutions were also part of it. And I think that is the opportunity we have to continue to bring this into a very great length. I think we need to use that opportunity. So I would like to thank presenters and keynote speakers who really participated in this conference, and distinguished professors who have an expert in the area, like Professor Ayela and Dr. Danyacho, who really told us in their presentations from the very initiative that Africans took many years ago, from the time of Du Bois and Garvey, and from the present time. And we have learned from all these presentations that, the Pan-Africanism is a concept and the idea we need. And at the same time, as the last speaker also mentioned, it's also demanding. It's not an easy task to bring this back into in all our life activities, and therefore we need to use this opportunity for developed and united Africa. I think what we have been trying to convey in this conference is not different from why the African Union is established for. In my opening speech, I mentioned an article from the African Union, which really dictates and says that cooperation within African people and institutions, even in day-to-day life. What we are talking about is asking us to work together. And that's not different from maybe from anyone who believes in a positive interaction, in any kind of positive interactions that one could have. And as Article 30 dictates, African interests should be protected by African sons. African interest means the interest that we have in any other African countries as well. So as a higher institution, we need to work on protecting the interests and the position of Africa. And therefore, where we have that responsibility today, and the concept of Pan-Africanism will help us grow scholarly and have the knowledge and skill for that purpose. And again, cooperation in all fields of life is what is important and what is needed for Pan-African concept as well. So what we are trying to do today in this conference as well is we work this with African institutions like Zambezi, University of Zambezi, Raira University, and more international university in Nigeria, Kenya, and Mozambique, work together to bring this conference into the stage. In other words, we are trying to operationalize the concept of Pan-Africanism, working together in brotherhood for common purpose, And therefore, I believe this has to continue. This has to continue in different terms. So as far as continuity is concerned, this annual conference should continue. And we had the first international conference. And as far as Debre Tabor University, and I believe those university partners who worked with us will also continue working with us in preparing the second annual conference. So I believe the administration of Debre Tabor University will work very hard to have a better international annual conference of Pan-Africanism. And secondly, we need to work on how we could institutionalize the concept of Pan-Africanism. As some of the speakers mentioned, we could include it in courses. We can establish field of studies. We can have regular research works and other modalities can also be in place. So in this regard, I believe some of, and I believe all of us would work together to institutionalize the concept of Pan-Africanism. In this regard, I will call a very special request to Professor Ayala to work with us in our future endeavors in establishing postgraduate studies and related curriculum issues that you were mentioning in your speech. Thirdly, we will continue to be a home of African students and scholars. When you talk about Pan-Africanism, it doesn't ask anything else than brotherhood, integrity, working for common goals, for the interest of the African people. And therefore, in this regard, we really enjoyed the brotherhood and with our students from South Sudan and Somalia. And we will continue to be the second home for these students and more students yet to come in the future. That is how we rationalize, that is how we realize the concept of brotherhood and Pan-Africanism, integrity, even for our daily lives. Partnership with African universities will continue with the purpose of such organizing annual conferences, as well as in other higher education responsibilities, like what Professor Mamo was presenting, like quality of education, like accreditation tasks, research and publication. All these are for us in the higher education to work together. We usually are more interested in partnering with, in working together with European and American universities, while we are too many in Africa to achieve the same goal. And therefore, I think this initiative should continue to be working with other fields like I believe in our second conference, we really had a very interesting with publication and proceedings will be our next focus, because we need to record everything and build on it every year, you know, and therefore that will be our next focus. And again, the digital skill that we really experienced in this conference also draws my attention. You know, in our next conferences, we should get in a better position toward this, you know, having a better and skilled digital capacity for having a better conference. And this would help us to entertain several audiences in Africa and beyond. And finally, this conference is a result of a very hard work, integrity, and teamwork by the organizers. I would like to thank the organizers in organizing this conference. They worked really very hard, day and night, and all the organizers from the 3 African universities and with Debre Tabor University really worked very hard. And therefore, I would like to convey my greatest appreciation for having a successful conference like this. So I believe you really enjoyed the time we had. I would like to thank distinguished professors and experts all over Ethiopia. I can see some 8 or 9 Ethiopian universities took part in this conference. And I think we need to follow what we really learned from this conference. So on behalf of Debre Tabor University and the entire faculty here in Debre Tabor University, I would like to thank all participants for your participation and for supporting us to have a very successful international conference on Pan-Africanism. We will continue with brotherhood, integrity towards a greater success, towards the benefit of African people and all Africans. I would like to close my my speech with what Professor Mammo mentioned in his presentation, that he was talking about Ubuntu, which we are not full without the other. I am in you and you are in me is really a great philosophy that we need to follow in our daily life as well. So I do not forget that I am always in you, and I believe that you all are in me, and we will continue with this integrity and brotherhood. I hope we will also meet in the second international conference that will be held maybe somewhere in Africa or in the Tabor as well. So I would like to thank everyone for your patience, for your support, for your participation in this conference, and thank you all. May God bless you. May God bless Africa. Thank you very much. Dr. Abraham, back to you.
Thank you for beautifully concluding our conference and sharing your commitment for Pan-Africanism and Pan-African studies. We really thank you very much. With the support of our management, we'll do better. We believe that we'll do better next year. Now, we are joined by a man from Gambia, which we must not miss. Unfortunately, due to differences in time zones, he was unable to join us. So let's hear from Mr. Osman Traore in the coming 10 minutes. Mr. Osman, welcome back. I'm really happy to see you here. We had a very long communication. I know your commitment to Pan-Africanism. Please briefly give us your view on Pan-Africanism under our team.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and I really apologize for the delay of joining this summit. As I communicated earlier on, I had some earlier commitments, and I'm currently joining you from Kigali, Rwanda. Thank you so much. Once again, Pan-Africanism is something that Usman is really passionate about, and I believe that that is one of the reasons that gather all of us here today, having a conversation on the betterment of the continent, but also on the whose role and whose watch and what responsibility do we offer our societies, our countries, and Africa in general as youth, but as well as tertiary institutions like universities, skill centers, and other developments. It is also very important to note that Pan-Africanism is not just things that we just talked about, but it is deeply rooted and philosophical, of course, but in the academic world, it has contributed greatly towards the development of knowledge in the continent. We've seen quite many African scholars who have written really good literatures on the awakening of the African child, on reminding the African where we really came from as a people, being the origin of civilization, but not only that, have championed certain development causes in one way of another. And one of the things that it also focuses on is for Africans to understand that our history do not start from colonialism, for instance. We have existed way before all that. And that Africa is a continent that have proven beyond reasonable doubt that many things have been invented and initiated in Africa, and it fits purpose. And what we intend to do right now is to bring this discussion to the table, that Pan-Africanism should not be an elderly discourse alone, but how do young people see themselves within these particular discussions, be it in universities, be it in social media, other debate platforms, to interrogate ideas and discuss about the progress of Africa in general. And how we, because Pan-Africanism is built on love, it is built on respect, it is built on the African understanding that Africa is what matters first. So there is a whole discourse and trying to shift the narrative for the young Africans to understand that the older African they're looking at cannot be a threat, but instead we should be working as partners to register development from our own communities and to our respective countries and the continent in general. So basically, these are some of the things that we've been doing in the Gambia and beyond. Of course, we have a foundation which looks into some of this discussion, but not only that, we provide an alternative. If you telling people that, okay, as a government, we must not rely on the Western world to develop. So what alternative do you give them? What do we then rely on? Is it ourselves? And if we are to rely on ourselves, our initiative, our ideas, how do we really do these things? So that is why we've championed such a cause, help with governments, with other institutions on some policies that they need to advance, but as well as the youths. How do we make sure that we build their entrepreneurial skills? That if we're telling them not to run away from the continent, what alternative do we give them? How can they live and enjoy the dignity of life as Africans and be very proud of that? So in as much as we do the discussion, it is important to move to the structures and actions. Beyond telling them that we need a mindset change, what skills do we offer? What opportunity do we give them? I think this should be our 21st century Pan-African argument as young people, and then to understand that we can use this to build a platform, and we can also use that to build a future that we want, not just for ourselves, but for generations of Africans to come. So I definitely appreciate the fact that you were able to put your resources together to bring in different audiences from different parts of the continent and even beyond. And I hope that we will have another time to discuss about most of these ideas in more details. But I thank you so much for everything, and to our dear audiences as well. Keep up the good work, and thank you so much.
Okay. Sorry, so now is the time for the head of the Department of History and the Dean of Social Science and Humanities to conclude. You have 3 minutes each, and please formally wind up our 2 days conference of Pan-African. Back to you.
Yatan is not audible. You unmute yourself.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Please proceed. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, all participants from all parts of the world. I'm very grateful and enjoyed to deliver the concluding remarks to the first international conference on Pan-African Studies with the theme of Pan-Africanism strategy for African development, strengthening the unity of Africa, really organized by WisdomTube University with the association of, or in association with University Dart in Zambezi or Mozambique, Raira in Kenya, and Muir International University in Nigeria. Thanks to Mozambique, Raira, and Muir International University in Nigeria for their collaboration with us for this first international conference. The theme of the conference was Pan-African Strategies for African Development in Strengthening the Unity of Africa, and the build-up of professionals, intellectuals, academics, researchers, and global experts in addressing the Pan-African movement and the development of African people globally. Participants will have the opportunity to share researches and ideas on the realities, challenges, and strategies for the development of the Pan-African intellectuals in the age of globalization, with a particular focus on the way of influence on impacts impact on institutions or organizations of people of African descent for the development of Africa everywhere by strengthening the unity of the continent or the unity of Africa. The conference have different objectives. The objectives were to impart the Pan-Africanism ideology and movement through education, through research and symposiums like this, the first international conference on Pan-African studies. The other objective was to evaluate the internal and external policies of African countries, to analyze the African politics and the political rights of African and their descendants, to dialogue about the relationship of African countries through culture, arts, and social aspects, to discuss about the African people common interest in the educational, industrial, and commercial enterprise development, to approach governments on policies in interest of the African people through symposiums by dialogue with different findings which investigated by researchers and the African scholars. So first of all, I would like to thank my teams in the conference of First International Conference on Pan-African Studies for their passionate work. While I see that they put their heart and they put their heart to make this event happen successfully. So we have received 50 plus abstracts from various parts of the globe. Then out of those, we accepted 25 abstracts. Then finally, we accepted also 16 papers among the 25 abstracts. So we rejected some abstracts because of their quality and because of the objective of our conference. Soon, having signed this, soon we are going to send certificates to all participants, paper presenters, and also for best paper shortly. We are going to send a feedback for the movement. You will see feedback from, you will get your e-certificates to your email ID automatically. Thank you thank you very much for everyone for passionate listening, and let us have a long-term learning association with future with our institution. This conference will be continued. It is an annual conference. This is the first international conference in our university, as our university president mentioned. So for the next year, it will be more successful. It will be more organized. Different African brothers, different African scholars will attend physically. It will be, I hope, it will be more successful. More participants will join our second conference, which will be held in the next year. Thank you very much. I am really, thank you very much.
Okay, hello everyone. Do you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
I am Iveltal, the Dean of Social Science and Humanities College of the organizing university, Debre Tabor University. And here I am to express or to convey vote of thanks for many individuals. I would like to really give many thanks to everyone who attended this great conference, which is different in its scope and kind in many ways. And I would like to thank primarily those who attended the conference, both virtually and physically. And having said this, there are specific individuals and institutions which I would like to express my thanks. I'm extremely pleased that this international conference was well attended by various scholars, students, stakeholders from different parts of the world. Now, I'm here to specify people who contributed a lot for the successful accomplishment of the conference. Primarily, I would like to thank Dr. Annagagreng Gashaw Farrada, the president of Debre Tabor University, on behalf of the organizing committee, for his great support. And in addition to Dr. Annagagreng Gashaw, Dr. Memberu Tashome, who is vice president of Debre Tabor University, contributed more. So Dr. Annagagreng Gashaw and Dr. Memberu Tashome, this conference made possible through the generous support of the two individuals. Without your cooperation, the conference wouldn't have been successful. I really appreciate your support. And the other one is the three universities, the three collateral universities should be given thanks, namely Zambezi University in Mozambique, Rera University in Kenya, and Mewar International University in Nigeria. Your collaboration makes the conference really Pan-Africanist. So I appreciate your effort and contribution. And others that I would like to thank are the partner, Dr. Kinde Gabayo, the academic vice president of Debre Tabor University, and Dr. Frehiot Ndala, the vice president of business and development and strategic partnership of Debre Tabor University. I really thank you, the two vice presidents. And the other one, Mr. Asmamo Kasahun, assistant professor, who is the director of research and community service and publication directorate in Debre Tabor University, in collaboration with Mr. Aitan Wadamu, who is coordinator of research and community service in Social Science and Humanities College. And the other people are Dr. Abraham Melke, Director of Foreign Affairs Relation in Debre Tabor University, Mr. Dawit Brahanu, Director of Communication Affairs in Debre Tabor University, Mr. Malaku Tadega, Coordinator of Research and Publication in Debre Tabor University, and individuals, Negus Mulu, who is a lecturer in Debre Tabor University, and your great effort, the four individuals, made the conference possible. And we expect a lot more contribution from you for the upcoming conference to be held, to be celebrated annually or every year. And the other people are the one who contributed a lion's share for the success of this conference is Mr. Getnet Gedefo. I witnessed his sleepless effort. He was, working hard day and night, and I appreciate Mr. Getnet Gedefo for this great effort. And the other coordinators of this conference, who are expatriate staff, Dr. Manju, Dr. Krishna, and Dr. Kumar, who are Indians. And without your effort and support, this conference wouldn't have been really successful. So we thank you a lot. And the other people, in organizing this conference, we organized an advisory board. We have arranged 13 international advisory board members from 11 countries like Saudi Arabia, India, and Philippines, United Kingdom, Egypt, South Africa, Lithuania, Angola, Kenya, Mozambique, and Nigeria. People who helped us in such countries, thank you very much. Thank you. And we also arranged 14 national advisory board members from Ethiopia, lecturers who are lecturers and researchers working in different countries. And the other people whom I should give thank for their effort are those who chaired the physical research conference, the physical paper presentation, who are working in Debre Tabor University. These individuals are Dr. Kandiye Isa and Dr. Mebrat Gedfe and Mr. Belleta Atanna. And last but not least, I would like to express my heartfelt thank on behalf of the college for keynote speakers, namely Professor Ayela Bakri, Dr. Danyacho Asafa, and the energetic keynote speaker, Gatlak, South Sudanese, and learning in Debre Tabor University. The three individuals make the conference, outshining, and we hope you will keep in touch with us. And finally, the committee members, Mr. Belleta Getachew, technically, he contributed a lot. We want to thank Mr. Belleta Getachew particularly. He's from computer science department. Mr. Ababa again in computer science, and Mr. Amanuel Zodu from Faculty of Technology. And once again, I would like to thank all of you for contribution in every aspect for the successful of this conference, and looking forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you again, everybody, for a great experience. Thank you, everyone. Good.
Okay. Thank you, Ivaltal, for giving your for thanking all our participants, our supporters. I also let me finally take the chance to generally thank some groups and some individuals. Generally, I thank the management team of Debre Tabor University for their support. And I also thank partner universities who are willing right from day one to work together with us. Participants of this conference, very senior professors, very great individual personalities. Especially today we hold them in an uncomfortable room, and we're sorry for that, and we thank you very much. Participants from abroad, virtual participants, we thank you very much. You made our conference very colorful and great. I also thank the organizing committee. Of course, the committee, the member of the committee was too many at the beginning, and we left 3 at the end. Anyway, I would like to express my gratitude to Indian professors who are working here, Dr. Manju, Dr. Krishna, and Dr. Kumar, who tirelessly support us for their support throughout the conference. And last but not least, my heartfelt gratitude goes to my dear friend Bellata, who made the ICT part, who successfully managed the ICT aspect of our conference. I thank you very much, and with the oil of God, I will see you next year. This is the end of our conference.
Dr. Abraham.
Yes.
One request, ask them to switch on all the videos and take the group photo.
Okay, okay.
Online group photo. Ask them to switch on all the videos so that you can make one group photo.
Okay, we'll take a screenshot. No problem.
Ask them to switch on the videos, all the participants. Ask Bellata to take the screenshot.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to take photos.
It's nothing.
Is this taken?
Wait a minute.
My picture also should be there.
All pictures will come. No issue.
I'm going to take a photo. If you are again, please open your my okay.
You should take.
Okay.
This it will go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again.
Taken?
Yeah, I'm taking.
Okay, right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Better to play national anthem, no? National anthem. No national anthem.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay.
Sound is going. Thank you. Goodbye.